What if you woke up tomorrow, in the year 1400? No rights, no lawyers, no way to explain yourself. The village smells like smoke, sweat, and suspicion. The church bells ring, but they don't sound holy. They sound like warnings. Eyes follow, you everywhere. And every whisper might be your last. Tonight, we're stepping into a world ruled not by truth, but by terror, where one wrong look, one wrong word, even one dream, could brand you a witch. Forget what fairy tales told. This isn't Hogwarts, this isn't Salem, this is medieval Europe. And here, being clever could kill you. Being different, deadly. So, before we light the torch and open the trial records, take a second to like this video and subscribe, but only if you're ready to walk through a history soaked in fear, fire, and fanaticism. Drop a comment below. Where are you watching from, and would you survive the witch hunts? Now, blow out the candles, listen for footsteps, and whatever you do, don't let them catch you talking to yourself, because you've just arrived in the 15th century. And the Inquisition doesn't care who you really are. You are welcome here, to this very soft corner of time. Tonight, we drift not into fantasy, but into history. Though the world we are about to visit may seem unreal, like a dream set in shadows, it is very real. Every stone on every cobbled street was laid by hands just like yours. Every sigh and every heartbeat belonged to someone who lived and feared, and whispered under the same moon that shines outside your window right now. But tonight, your window will fog gently with sleep, and your breath will slow, because we are going to travel far, into the cold, dim breath of the 17th century, to a time when the wind sounded different, to a place where suspicion crackled like firewood, and where an innocent smile, a herb pouch, or a too long silence might leave you accused of dancing with the devil. We will not shout or rush or fill your ears with facts stacked like stones in a textbook. This is not that kind of story. This is a whisper. This is a slow and winding path, a candle held close in the dark, the scent of wet bark and wood smoke, the sound of footsteps on dirt, the rustle of linen and wool in the morning frost. You will not be asked to learn. You will simply be asked to listen. And it is perfectly fine, expected even, that your eyes might drift closed, that your mind might blur the edge between imagination and sleep, that halfway through a village tale or the stirring of a cauldron, you might forget where you are entirely. This is not failure. This is the invitation. You are here to rest, and yet, somewhere in your resting, you may find yourself walking the Dewey edges of history, breathing in the air of another world, watching shadows stretch longer than they should, hearing whispers at the edge of reason, feeling the cool, watching fog roll over distant meadows, all while wrapped in the safety of your present moment. Before we begin, a small and necessary warmth. This story is set in a time of fear, of misunderstanding, of violence. But you are not here to feel afraid. You are here to float above it, to observe gently, to imagine slowly, and to know always that you are safe, wrapped in the hush of the present. Tonight, you will try to survive a full day in a world that had rules you never wrote, punishments you never imagined, and beliefs that flicker like candle flames, trembling and strange. You may wake in the body of a villager, or a healer, or a woman who stares too long at the sky. You may be seen or overlooked, protected or hunted. You may make it to nightfall, or you may not, but do not worry. Whether you sleep through it or drift gently in and out of it, your journey will continue, soft as snow on straw. And when it ends, hours from now, you may not remember every word, but you might remember the hush of the fields, the scent of peats smoke, the strange quiet of a room where suspicion lingers. You are not alone here, and you are not being tested. You are only being told a story. So find your blanket, let your shoulders loosen, let your eyes blur just enough that they no longer need to see, only feel. In a moment, we will begin our descent, not just through centuries, but through silence, through fog, through the smell of old wood, through laws written in ink and fear, through superstition, through stillness, through everything they once thought sacred or cursed. You are about to enter the year 1645, somewhere in England. The precise village is lost to time, but the fear is not. The witch hunts are in full bloom. Parliament and pulpit speak in the same trembling voice, and the people, they are afraid. But you will be more than a visitor. You will be part of the day. And before the sun sets again, you will understand, deeply, wordlessly, gently, why someone like you would have been burned as a witch in the 1600s. So breathe in slowly. Let your breath fall into rhythm. The kind of rhythm that fits inside a cradle, or a prayer, or a secret. And now, if you are ready, or even if you are only halfway, so let us begin. Let us travel. Let us fall. Let us open the door to then. Let me. You feel it before you see it. A kind of quiet, curling around your shoulders like wool soaked in mist. The air no longer hums with the pulse of modernity. There is no electricity in it, no faint buzz of something always running. Instead, it feels still, as if the earth itself is holding its breath, and slowly, so slowly, you begin to wake. The mattress beneath you is not a mattress at all, not by your understanding. It is straw, rough, uneven, poking at your sides through a woolen ticking. It smells faintly of earth, and something older, something animal. The blanket wrapped around you is coarse, scratchy, and smells of wood smoke, sweat, and time. You shift, and it rasps against your skin, whispering your movement to the quiet room. You do not know where you are yet. Not really, but your body is beginning to understand. It is cold, not sharp or brutal, but an old, creeping cold that lives in the walls. You pull the blanket tighter, and as your eyes adjust to the dim light, you see the low beams above you. Thick wood, hand-hewn, stained dark with soot and age. They seem to hold the ceiling up not by architecture, but by willpower. Light filters in through something that is not quite a window, more like a square of oiled linen stretched across a wooden frame. It softens the morning sun into a pale, milky gray that makes everything look as though it were painted in smoke. Dust drifts slowly in that light, each particle visible, suspended, turning in the air like little spirits who forgot they were meant to rise. You sit up. The shift you are wearing, linen, maybe flax, is soft from wear but still rough against your skin. It clings a little, catching on your elbows, your knees, reminding you that clothes in this world are not made to flatter, but to survive. You swing your legs over the side of the low bed. Your feet touch the packed dirt floor, cool and firm, and a shiver traces its way up your spine. The room is small, the kind of small that makes everything in it feel intimate. There is a low table, a stool, a hearth of river stones packed with ash. The faint scent of last night's fire still lingers. Wood smoke, a trace of onion, maybe something bitter and herbal. A clay jug sits near the door. You pick it up and tilt it. Water. Cold. Flat and real. You sip, and it tastes like river and minerals, and a little like the clay itself. Outside, a rooster crows. Not once, but again and again. As if the morning needs convincing. You move to the door and unlatch it. The latch is wood on wood, swollen from damp, and you have to press a little harder than you expect. When it gives, the door creaks open and air rushes in. thicker, fuller than you remember air ever being. The village greets you with the breath of its land. It is early. The sky is a low blanket of clouds, ashen and streaked with pearl. The grass underfoot is wet with dew. You step into the morning, and the world wraps around you. Every sound is sharper, every smell deeper. A cartwheel creaks in the distance. A dog barks twice and then falls silent. Somewhere nearby, a child begins to cry, muffled by stone walls, and a mother's soft voice. There is no pavement, only earth. Your feet find it naturally, feeling its softness, its rhythm. Everything is earth. Earth in the air, earth in the walls, earth in your breath. You begin to walk. Each home you pass is shaped like yours, small, low, smoky, patched with wattle and daub. Their thatched roofs slope downward like tired brows. Smoke curls up from holes in the roofs, thin and gray, disappearing into the low sky. A woman kneels in her doorway, beating cloth against a plank. Her sleeves are rolled, her arms are strong. She does not look at you, not yet, but you feel her gaze waiting. You pass a goat tethered to a post, chewing slowly. Its eyes flick toward you with a calm, unreadable stare. A chicken wanders across your path, pausing to peck the mud. Its feathers are dull and damp, its beak working methodically. A man passes by with a yoke across his shoulders, 2 wooden buckets hanging from either side. He nods once, curtly, without words. His boots are caked in mud, his breath mists in the cold. You wonder, briefly, if he is real, but everything here is too slow to be fiction, too solid, too worn. You feel the village beginning to breathe around you. The church bell has not yet rung. The sky has not yet lifted, but already the village stirs. Fires are being relit, doors unlatched, carts pulled from lean-tos. You can hear the scraping of iron on iron, the clink of stone on pot. The village is rising, and you are rising with it. The world you left behind has gone quiet. Your phone, your clock, your glass windows and running taps, they no longer exist here. And strangely, you do not miss them, because the sounds here are louder in a softer way, because the wind here means something, because the cold here belongs to you. A crow calls from the rafters of the church. It is loud. It echoes. You feel it in your ribs. You are fully here now. No more drifting. No more imagining. You have woken. In a time not made for you, but you are in it. You are alive in it. And as you pull the cloak, coarse and damp, around your shoulders, you begin to understand the gravity of this day. The weight of eyes. The weight of silence. The weight of being known, or not known enough. Because today, if you are not careful, someone may call you strange, and strange is not safe here. Strange is dangerous. Strange is a word that spreads like smoke. Take a breath. Breathe in the cold. Let the wind carry you a little farther. Now the day can begin. You pull your cloak tighter as the breeze threads through the narrow village lanes, curling around your ankles like a cat uncertain whether it wants to be seen or left alone. The cloak is wool, thick but coarse and dyed a dull brown that once might have been green. Its hem is damp and heavy from brushing the morning grass, and it smells faintly of lanolin and ash. Beneath it, your tunic, linen, stiff from the cold, unevenly stitched, rubs gently against your shoulders. The seams itch slightly, but it is the kind of itch that feels lived in, like an old thought. Nothing here fits perfectly. Clothes are not tailored unless you are wealthy. They are handed down, refitted, patched again and again until they remember the shapes of those who wore them before. Men wear breeches, woolen and belted, with coarse hose that sag slightly at the knees. Their shirts are blousy and stained, tucked into worn leather waistcoats. Many wear caps or felted hats, not for fashion, but for necessity. The weather here bites. It seeps into the scalp, curls under collars, makes itself a permanent guest. Shoes, if worn, are leather, stiff, cracked, often handmade by someone with more patience than skill. Women's clothing is heavier still. They wrap themselves in layers: chemise, stays, bodice, kirtle, apron, coif. There is modesty in the fashion, but also protection, against the cold, against the gaze, against a world that watches. Their skirts rustle as they walk, brushing the earth with every step, gathering mud at the hem. Aprons are stained with lard and ash, flower and root dye, reminders of the hearth. Hair is bound, hidden under linen caps or woolen kerchiefs, and only the very young leave their hair loose, though even that draws looks, whispers, warnings from mothers with tight jaws and eyes always scanning. Color, where it appears, is subtle. Earth tones dominate: brown, gray, deep green, muted blue, because brighter dyes are costly, and because attention is a kind of danger. Red might be worn by the bold, or by those who do not yet understand that red is a color too often seen in flames. Everything smells of wool, of soil, of animals, of smoke. Even new clothes carry the scent of the field where the sheep once grazed, or the dark corner of the cottage where the dye pots steamed. There is no such thing as scentless laundry here. Clothes are washed with ash and water, sometimes scrubbed with sand, sometimes not at all, and they dry by the hearth, curling in the heat, absorbing the lives lived around them. You touch the edge of your sleeve. The roughness catches against your fingers. This is how the world feels now. Textured, scratchy, thick. Nothing slips on, like silk. Everything carries weight, and how you dress is not just a matter of comfort, it is a signal, to show wealth, or poverty, or humility, or defiance. And when the time comes, and it will come, someone might point to your shoes, or your unbound hair, or your dyed bodice, and say, "There." That is how a witch would dress. But for now, you walk on, and the cloak still clings to your shoulders, and the wind still carries the smell of wood and wool and winter. You keep your gaze low as you walk through the village, not because you are ashamed, but because it is safer that way. In this world, a glance held too long can mean too much. It can speak out of turn. It can whisper rebellion. It can be mistaken for pride, or worse, defiance. Eyes are powerful things here. You learn to aim yours downward, to let them drift rather than fix. As you pass a man leading his oxen, you nod slightly, not deeply and not too casually. It is a delicate balance. A greeting here must be just enough to acknowledge, not enough to invite. Too warm and you might seem forward. Too cool and you might seem haughty. The man nods back, slow and unreadable, and you keep walking, your feet brushing the damp earth in quiet rhythm. When you reach the market square, such as it is, just a wide, muddy patch flanked by wooden stalls and wool tents, you notice the hush that lives beneath the noise. People speak, yes, they bargain, call out, scold a child. But the tones are muted, measured, as though every word is being weighed on a scale you cannot see. There is a formality to speech, even between neighbors. People say, "Good day," with careful mouths. They say, "God keep you," with a nod and a hand against the chest, fingers closed. The way you stand matters. Posture is not about poise, but about place. A bowed head shows respect. A lowered body shows humility. You see it often, young men bowing low before elders, women dipping curtsies so brief they barely move, servants standing with hands folded, never looking up unless spoken to. These are not gestures of charm. They are reminders of rank, etched deep into every movement. Touch is rare, reserved, calculated. A hand on the shoulder might be comfort or command, but never casual. Lovers do not hold hands in public. Children are guided with firm palms at their backs. And even in joy, at a birth or a wedding, hugs are stiff, brief, surrounded by watchful eyes. You pass two women speaking by a well. Their hands move as they talk, fluttering like birds, emphasizing, clarifying. But even those movements feel careful, like leaves caught in a wind that might turn. You hear one of them laugh, short and clipped, and the other glances around quickly, making sure no one misinterprets the sound. Silence, too, has rules. If you say nothing when spoken to, it can be taken as offense. If you say too much, it can be taken as madness. You must live in the middle, in the quiet space between questions and answers, between custom and suspicion. Here, etiquette is not about politeness, it is about survival. You keep walking. Your hands are at your sides. Your mouth is quiet. Your eyes glance but do not linger, and in this way you begin to learn the language of the body, the alphabet of small movements, the dictionary of silence, a language where safety is whispered through lowered eyes and shallow nods. The roles are not written on signs or spoken aloud with ceremony. They do not need to be. They are carved into the bones of daily life, passed down like heirlooms, worn like the clothes that hang from every shoulder. The air itself seems to carry the weight of expectation, and everyone breathes it, deep, unthinking, unavoidable. If you are a woman, your world circles the hearth like a slow, endless orbit. From dawn to dusk, your hands are rarely still. You rise before the sun to stir the fire, to knead the bread, to sweep the floor with a bundle of dried reeds. You tend to the children if they live, or mourn them quietly if they do not. You steep herbs for coughs, wrap wounds in linen strips, pluck lice from your daughter's hair by the glow of the embers. You sew, mend, cook, and you carry. Always, you carry. Water, baskets, burdens. You do not speak loudly. Your voice belongs inside walls. You do not walk alone unless the journey is short or urgent or hidden. If your sleeves are rolled too high or your smile lingers too long, it may be noticed. Not today, perhaps, but eventually. Someone is always watching. Another woman, perhaps. A man. A child who hears too much and forgets too little. If you are a man, the world is larger, but not lighter. You work the fields, dig the soil, split the wood, sweat through seasons that pay you little. You are expected to be strong, but not soft, firm, but not cruel, religious, but not overly pious. You know how to bind a wound and slaughter a pig. You know the feel of a plow handle, the sound of hooves in the mud, the silence of your father's hands resting on your shoulder without words. Men make decisions. Women keep peace. Men speak at the meeting house. Women speak at the well. But even those lines blur in times of fear, especially when fear turns toward the home, especially when something unexplained needs explaining and someone must be blamed. And those who do not fit, the quiet man, the unmarried woman, the widow with no children, the midwife who knows too much, float outside the roles like driftwood on a black river, neither here nor safe, always observed, always measured against the known. You walk through this world with a borrowed shape, and already you feel it. The heaviness of rules never written, the quiet pressure of eyes trained on the edges of your behavior. It is not that you are told who to be. It is that you are never allowed to forget. You begin to notice it more with every step, the layering of lives, not just in clothing or accent, but in how the air bends around each person. Some walk as though the ground owes them its steadiness. Others walk with their eyes down, not from shyness, but from knowing their place too well. You see it in the way people part when the steward passes, in the subtle stiffening of backs, the murmured greetings, the silence that follows. This is not a world of equality. It is a world of order. And that order is not kind. At the top of this fragile pyramid sits the landowner, or perhaps the local lord. His boots are clean. His hands are rarely calloused. His word is not law, but it is close enough to change the course of a life with a single scowl or nod. He answers to the magistrate, who answers to the crown. But those chains are long and rarely felt in places like this. Authority here is both near and distant. Like a cold wind you can hear howling but cannot escape. Below the gentry are the clergy, men who carry Scripture like armor and wear God like a title. They are both shepherds and watchers, offering prayers with one hand and judgment with the other. To question them is not merely social error, it is spiritual danger. They know the names of every child born and every sin half confessed. They do not forget. They are not meant to. And beneath them are tradesmen and craftsmen, those who work with their hands but carry skills too valuable to ignore. The miller, the smith, the weaver, the apothecary. They are respected, sometimes even envied, but they are also monitored. Success, when it rises too far, draws eyes and whispers. And if something goes wrong, if a cow dies or a child takes sick, it is not the Lord or the priest who will be blamed. It is the one who prospered too quickly. At the bottom are the laborers, the peasants, the poor, those who own little and owe much. Their lives are the scaffolding upon which the village rests, yet they are thanked with silence. They bend their backs, offer their children to fields and apprenticeships, and pray not for joy but for survival. A good year means enough food. A bad one means burial mounds and punishment. Punishment belongs to all. It is swift, often public, always sharp, stocks in the square, fines paid in eggs and labor, a whipping post near the church door. The crimes vary: stealing, idleness, insolence, blasphemy, but the punishments leave marks, not just on the body, on reputation, on lineage. A branded hand might heal. A branded name does not. Witchcraft, that is something else entirely. It is not punished, it is purged. The accused are not corrected. They are erased, their possessions burned, their homes emptied, their friends made, strangers. Guilt is assumed. Proof is fluid, and acquittal is rare. So you walk carefully. Because in this world, your worth is measured in silence, in posture, in how closely you fit the shape they expect. And if you stand too tall, or speak too freely, or simply fail to kneel when kneeling is required, someone may take notice. And here, notice is often the first step toward disappearance. You awaken slowly, as though the world itself is inviting you to open your eyes on its own time. Your senses come alive one by one. The rough straw beneath. You, damp with yesterday's dew and faintly warmed by your own body heat. The distant scent of wood smoke curling through cracks in the wattle walls, carrying with it a hint of yesterday's stew and the promise of fresh embers. And the muted light filtering through the oiled linen window, soft as a sigh, painting everything in pale silver and shadow. You lie still for a moment, letting the hush settle around you like a second skin, tasting in the air the quiet tension of a world that is just beginning to stir. You can feel the weight of your own breath rising and falling, as if each inhalation draws in the past and each exhalation releases you further into this strange morning. The blanket at your shoulder is heavy and musty, pressed close to your cheek, and you move an arm to push it aside, slowly so the sound of rustling wool does not break the delicate calm. Your feet touch the hard-packed earth floor, and a shiver rises along your spine. The air is cool, the kind of cool that seeps into bones and lingers, reminding you of the rawness of this place. You stand and draw the blanket around your shoulders again, wrapping yourself in its scratchy warmth, and the movement echoes dully against the wooden beams. There is no hurry, no ticking clock to demand your attention. Instead, time flows like thick honey, heavy and deliberate, giving you the moment to notice every small sensation. You walk toward the hearth, just a shallow depression of stones packed with cold ash, and lean forward to blow against the remnants of the embers. They glow faintly, as if waking from a long slumber. You cup your hands around your breath, coaxing them back to life. With a thin stick of kindling, you lift fragments of charcoal until the glow brightens to a slow burn. The warmth returns first to your fingers, then to your chest, then to the air around you. Smoke rises in a thin ribbon and drifts toward the low ceiling, carrying with it the comforting tang of moss and sap. While the fire catches, you move to the corner where water rests in a clay jug. You lift it and pour a little into a wooden bowl, listening to the soft slosh of liquid against the clay. You wet a linen cloth from the jug and press it against your face. Cool, rough, and cleansing. You feel the grit of yesterday's labor dissolve under your fingertips, and you breathe in the scent of fresh linen mingling with earth and smoke. You rinse your hands and your neck, drawing the cloth slowly across your skin, as though you are washing away not just dirt but the borders between two worlds. Water drips onto the floor and darkens the earth, and you pause to watch the rivulet, wind toward a crack beneath the door. In that moment, you acknowledge the fragility of this life, measured in the smallest of actions, and you accept that every drop of water is both necessity and blessing. With the hearth now glowing warmly, you reach for the bundle of reeds that serves as your broom and begin to sweep the small area around you. Each stroke of the broom sends motes of ash dancing in the firelight, and you feel as if you are guiding a flock of tiny spirits across the floor. The motion is rhythmic and meditative, and your body falls into its own quiet cadence. You sweep away the loose straw, the crumbs of yesterday, the broken bits of pottery, until the earth beneath your feet feels firm and true. You step back and lean against the lintel of the door, feeling at once both present and adrift, held by the moment and yet already part of its endless cycle. Outside the door, you can hear the low murmur of voices, the shuffle of early footsteps, the distant clatter of a wheel turning in the mud. The village is waking, and with each breath you take, you feel yourself becoming part of its rhythm. You reach for your cloak, whose folds whisper as you shake off the last of the straw and wrap it around your shoulders. The wool is heavy, but it holds in the warmth of the fire, and you press your hands against its coarse surface, feeling the faint ridges of its weave. You step outside, and the world greets you fully. The air is brighter now, the sky lifting, from slate gray to a pale web of clouds that tremble with the promise of sun. Dew glitters on every blade of grass, and a low mist lingers in the hollows. You inhale deeply, and the mixture of damp earth and wood smoke fills your lungs like a benediction. Underfoot, the path is soft and yielding, leaving behind prints that will vanish with the next breeze or footstep. For now, you stand in the doorway of your life here, caught between the comfort of the hearth and the vastness of the waking world. The day stretches before you, heavy with possibility and danger alike. The smallest misstep could draw a sharp eye, the faintest mispronouncement a sharp tongue. But for this moment, this sacred half-breath between sleep and labor, you are merely alive, breathing in the chill, feeling the first warmth of morning, and embracing the hush that precedes motion. And as you step fully into the village dawn, the gentle cadence of your own heartbeat becomes the first melody of the day. You slip back inside, the door's wooden latch sighing shut behind you, and the hearth greets you with its steady warmth. The morning light has shifted, gilding the smoke above the stones in russet ribbons. Hunger stirs in your belly, a quiet reminder of life's simplest need. You gather a handful of chopped kindling, feed it to the embers, and watch the flames flicker awake, revealing the rough-hewn beams and dark corners of your simple home. You settle on a low stool beside the hearth, your hands brushing against the worn leather of your belt where a small knife is sheathed. You draw it free, its blade dull from years of use, and you begin the ritual of food. First, you fetch a sack of barley grains, pale, rounded kernels that clink softly as you pour them into a wooden bowl. Each grain feels cool and hard beneath. Your fingers, as if the past winter itself has been preserved inside its shell. You pour water from the clay jug until it swirls over the barley, watching the grains bob beneath the surface. You think of how many times this same bowl has held yesterday's remnants, and how each meal is both new and familiar, shaped by the seasons and by necessity. You lift a rough wooden spoon and stir gently, coaxing the grains apart so they can drink fully. The water is muddy now, thick with starch, and you drain it through a length of coarse linen, your makeshift strainer, into a second vessel. The sound of water passing through cloth is soft, muffled, like a whisper too low to follow. You return the barley to the bowl and add fresh water, just enough to cover. Then you carry the bowl to the hearth and set it atop 3 stones placed deliberately around the heart of the fire. You adjust a larger stone to prop the bowl at the perfect angle, and the barley begins to simmer, releasing a gentle hiss that blends with the crackle of flame. While the barley cooks, you turn to the small wooden table and select a wedge of hard cheese and a handful of roots, parsnip, carrot, perhaps a turnip. You peel the roots with your knife, each stroke sending slender curls of skin spiraling onto the table like tiny, pale ribbons. Your hands move in memory and muscle, easily following the shape of the vegetables. You slice them into thick discs, feeling the resistance of fresh vegetable against steel, and arrange them in a shallow pan you place near the fire. A little water, a pinch of salt, if you have it, enough to coax fragrance from the roots without drowning them. The roots steam gently, exhaling an earthy sweetness that drifts toward your face and anchors you to this moment. You return your attention to the barley. The grains have plumped, and the mixture is thick, almost porridge-like. You stir, lifting spoonfuls to taste. It is bland, though comforting, with the barest hint of nuttiness, a base for what comes next. You transfer a portion to your bowl and crumble the cheese over the top. The cheese softens from the heat, its sharp tang cutting through the mild barley. You break the crust with your spoon and let the runny center swirl in the porridge. It becomes a single curve of flavor, a gentle blend of grain and dairy. You carry the bowl to the table and sit. The wooden bench is cold against your thighs, but the steam rising from the bowl warms your hands as you bring it to your lips. Each mouthful is deliberate, slow, as though tasting too quickly would shatter the spell of this hearth. The barley slides across your tongue, grain by grain, carrying the smoky trace of peat and the faint vinegar of the cheese. You taste the stone beneath your feet, the air behind your shoulders, the soft heat of the rising fire. With each bite, you feel yourself more entwined with the land, more part of this unfolding day. Between mouthfuls, you pause and listen. The hearth hisses. Outside, you hear a cartwheel creak, then the faint braying of a donkey. A woman's voice rises in song, simple notes, unpracticed but sincere. The melody drifts through the closed window, touching the edges of your soul. You taste again, appreciative of the blend of nourishment and sound, of labor and rest. The roots are done now, softened to the point of yielding under your fork. You lift a disc of carrot, its edges browned slightly from steam, and the sweetness dissolves on your tongue like honey. The turnip has kept a hint of its peppery bite, a reminder that all nourishment here is earned. You chew slowly, feeling the fibers unwind between your teeth, and you let the flavors mingle, savoring the warmth that pools in your chest. When the bowl is nearly empty, you pause, savoring the final spoonful. You press the edge of the bowl to catch every grain and every drop of melted cheese. You rest the spoon beside the hearth and tilt the bowl toward the fire, warming the clay and any remnants inside. The heat glows through the earthen surface, reminding you of the vessel's journey, from clay beneath the earth, to the potter's wheel, to your hands in this quiet morning. After a moment, you set the bowl down and stand. You wipe your hands on your apron and brush away crumbs of barley and cheese. You gather the tools, the knife, the spoon, the strainer, and return them to their places. You dump the water from the strainer onto the hearth, where it hisses and steams, carrying with it the final sense of the meal. You lean against the jamb of the door and look outward. The sun has risen fully now, and the village is alive with motion. A baker's child runs past, a basket of wood chips dangling from one arm. A neighbor carries milk from the cottage barn, her dress stained with hay. Everything is movement, labor, necessity. Everything is alive, and yet there remains a hush, a reverence for the morning meal that has passed without hurry, a recognition that food here is more than fuel. It is connection. To the field where the barley grew, to the herd that gave the cheese, to the hands that prepared it. You taste, a final trace of warm barley on your lips, a whisper of home in this strange world, and you carry it with you as you step back into the village bustle, ready for the day's next chapter. You step out into the morning light, and the village unfolds. Around you, like a great living tapestry of labor, each person moves in a deliberate rhythm, as though their bodies remember the song of work long after their minds have gone quiet. You draw a slow breath, tasting the mingled scents of wood smoke, damp earth, and the faint metallic tang of the forging shed across the way. This is the beating heart of the day, the pulse that carries everyone forward. To be still here is to be left behind. You begin with the chores closest to home. First, the fire must be tended. Embers glow beneath the blackened stones, and you feed them small sticks of dry kindling until the flames dance low and sure. You pile on larger logs, listening to the crack and sigh as the wood accepts the flame, releasing warmth and light into the dark corners of the room. Sparks drift up like curious moths, and you watch them settle into the rafters where they vanish into the shadows. Next, you bring water from the well. The bucket is heavy in your hands, cold, solid, carrying the weight of every drop that has ever sloshed inside. You lower it into the well's yawning mouth, feel the rope slip through your fingers, and wait. Every second stretches as you imagine the dark surface of the water below, still and infinite. When the bucket rises, dripping, you carry it across the yard and pour it carefully into a trough for the animals, letting it cascade over the rough stone lip. The goats and the cow stir at the sound, lowing softly as they press their muzzles into the cool stream. You fill a second bucket and bring it inside, setting it by the hearth for cooking and washing later. Beyond the yard, the fields await. You walk the muddy path toward the garments of green that sway just beyond the fence. Your hands brush against the wooden slats, and you feel the promise of growth in every bud and shoot. Today, you will help with the sowing. The seed scuttles in your apron pocket like tiny pebbles, each kernel a promise and a prayer. You kneel in the rich loam, pressing your fingers into the soft furrows, making the shapes that will cradle life and sustenance. You pause to cup a handful of earth, let its granules sift between your palms, its smell of rain and roots filling your senses. You plant each seed deliberately, spacing them just so, an instinct passed down through countless hands before yours, until the row stretches ahead of you like a soft invitation to the future. A call comes from the forge, a deep, persistent clang. You leave the field and follow the sound, feeling it resonate through your chest. Inside, the blacksmith hunches over his anvil, hammer raised high, then brought down in a shower of sparks. The metal glows orange beneath his blows, and each strike is both violent and precise, shaping horseshoes or plowshares that will carry the village through seasons to come. You watch his arms ripple with effort, his shirt dark with sweat, and you understand that this, too, is a kind of song, one of strength and endurance and the steady transformation of raw matter into tools of survival. From there, you move to the barn, where hay lies mounded like golden hills. You climb a ladder into the loft and begin to toss the loose strands down to waiting arms below. Each movement is the same. Grab, heave, release. The hay drifts through the air, brushing against your face, slipping into your hair, carrying with it the faint, sweet sap of summer. You feel the weight of the hay on your shoulders as you shift positions, and for a moment you are acutely aware of the boundary between skin and fabric, between human and burden. When the pile below is leveled, you descend and help stack the bales near the door, creating pathways for the animals and for the wheelbarrow that will carry them into the cold months ahead. You pause by the mill wheel, spinning slowly in its water channel. The grinding stone hums a low, constant note as grain is crushed into flour for bread. You place your hand on the cool wood of the wheel's trough and feel the pull of the current beneath your fingertips. The water has been diverted from the stream upstream, routed through dark stone channels to power this steady labor. You imagine the miller's hands, rough and worn, reaching into sacks of wheat and rye, guiding them into the hopper with practiced ease. In this place, every movement is freighted with purpose. Flour to bread, bread to life. A small commotion drifts from the edge of the village, a group of children gathering sticks for their own chores, their laughter bright and uncarried by shame. You watch them as they scamper across the grass, each stick a prize. You remember how simple tasks once felt like treasures, how duty and play were woven together as tightly as the rope that binds a hay bale. Their joy is a reminder that even in labor there is lightness, a spark that can survive the soot and sweat. As the sun climbs, you return home to wash the day's sweat from your skin. You draw water from the jug by the hearth, feeling the cool weight of the vessel in your hands once more, and you cleanse your face and arms. Each drop carries away grit and fatigue, leaving behind a sense of renewal. You dry yourself on a linen cloth, smooth and warmed by the hearth, and you slip into fresh garments, coarser than your modern skin might allow, but they feel like armor now, protective and familiar. By midday, your body is humming with accomplishment. Your hands know the strains of each task, the angles, the motions, the music of labor. You carry one last bucket outside, water for the plants that dry under the sun's steady gaze. You pour it slowly at the roots, whispering thanks to the green, leaves that reach for the sky. In this world, every chore is sacrament. Every drop of sweat is an offering. Every breath drawn between tasks carries the pulse of life, and in the quiet moments between one task and the next, you listen. You hear the creak of wheel and hinge, the murmur of voices in doorways, the distant crow of a rooster marking the progress of time. You feel the weave of community, each person's labor intersecting with your own, forming a tapestry that holds you up. Here, in the slow unfolding of work and chores, you come to understand the weight of existence in the 1600s. Not as a burden, or as punishment, but as the very fabric of life. Each task, each movement, each gesture shapes the day and shapes you, and as you lift your gaze to the horizon, to a sky streaked with clouds and hope, you know that this world is neither gentle nor cruel. It simply is, and you, in your cloak of wool and your hands of soil, are living within its rhythm. You step away from the fields and the forge, seeking a moment's grace beneath the open sky. The air here is richer with laughter and music, carried on the wind like a promise of respite. Today, the villagers have gathered around the green for a simple celebration. No grand feast, no heralds or banners, just a shared desire to lean into joy for a little while before the burdens of hunger and weather reclaim them. A fiddler perches on a low stump, and his bow hums against the strings, weaving a tune that feels both ancient and alive, as if the melody has been passed from one generation to the next by firelight and soft speech. You drift into the circle of onlookers, feeling your breath soften, your heartbeat align with the fiddle's gentle pulse. Children dance barefoot on the grass, their toes pressing into clumps of dew-wet earth, spinning in wide arcs that send their skirts billowing like petals in a breeze. They laugh without reservation, the sound bright as bells, and you find yourself smiling despite the tightness you carry in your chest. Nearby, a group of women form a ring, linking hands and swaying slowly, their movements deliberate and rhythmic. They chant in soft unison, half poetry and half prayer, invoking good fortune for the crops and protection for the village through the turning of seasons. Their voices rise and fall like waves, carrying in their cadence the stories of their ancestors, tales of harvest, of loss, of renewal. You watch their faces, lined by labor yet lit by the spark of shared ritual, and you feel the hum of connection that binds every soul here. A pair of young men stand off to the side, challenging one another to feats of strength that echo the contests of old. One lifts a heavy hammer, swinging it above his head before letting it fall in a controlled arc, striking a metal plate that bellows like a blacksmith's chorus. The other balances on a beam, testing his stability as villagers cheer each small victory. These displays are not merely for show, but for remembrance. Remembrance that strength and skill can protect, that each body is an instrument of survival. You sense the pride in their shoulders, the subtle way they stand tall when their effort is applauded, and you feel the urge to join, to test your own limits in measure with theirs, but you hesitate, aware of the watchful eyes that might judge, a stranger's skill as boastful or out of place. In a shaded corner, an old woman sits beside a rough-hewn table, her fingers working deftly through a deck of cards that have seen countless hands. She lays them out one by one, offering divinations, in hushed tones. To some, she speaks of love, not the grand romance of poets, but the small intimacies of shared hearth and meager comforts. To others, she warns of storms on the horizon, visible not in the sky, but in the folding of a card, an omen to guide preparations for hard times. A small queue forms, each villager placing coins or a pinch of grain on the table as payment. You approach with reverence, and when she looks up, her eyes meet yours with the calm certainty of one who has peered beyond the edges of this world. She shuffles once more, her fingers pale and veined, and invites you to choose. The card you reveal speaks of change, subtle winds shifting direction, a whisper that luck can be found in the most unexpected places. You nod, half believing, half hoping, and tuck the card into your pocket like a secret to carry. Laughter blooms as two neighbors challenge each other to arm wrestling at a simple wooden bench. Villagers lean in, chanting and cheering in equal measure, their voices mingling into a single roar of encouragement. The men lock hands and strain, veins rising on forearms like roots beneath bark, until one yields with a jovial groan and the other raises a triumphant fist. The defeated man slaps his friend on the back, and they share a glance that speaks of bond and rivalry intertwined. Around them, the circle tightens, and the air fills with smoke from nearby cooking fires where sausages sizzle on skewers and flatbreads puff in the embers. The scent drifts across the green, weaving through the melody of the fiddle and the cadence of feet tapping on grass. As the sun climbs higher, casting long shadows that shift slowly across the village green, a hush falls over the crowd. Everyone moves toward a central space where a maypole stands, its ribbons frayed yet vibrant. Two pairs of dancers step forward, each taking a ribbon. With measured steps, they weave patterns around the pole, their ribbons crossing and uncrossing, in gentle spirals. The dance is slow at first, each turn deliberate, each gesture a quiet celebration of unity. Then, as the tune quickens, their movements become urgent, more spirited, ribbons twisting together like bright threads in a tapestry. You find yourself drawn into their steps, your own ribbon snagging on your fingers as you join the circle, hesitant but determined. The world narrows to the feel of ribbon against skin, the thrum of fiddle strings, the warmth of bodies pressed close. In that moment, every worry dissolves into the swirl of color and motion, and you understand why celebration is not a luxury, but a necessity, a way to strengthen the heart before it faces the long road again. You linger until the light softens, until the fiddler's tune slows and the children's laughter fades. The smoke from cooking fires settles into the air, carrying with it the promise of shared bread and salt. You step away from the green, each footfall leaving a mark that will vanish with the next breeze or passing foot. Yet in your mind, the steps remain, etched in memory like a dream you can recall by touch. As you walk back to your own hearth, the echoes of laughter, song, and the soft tap of dancing feet follow you, reminding you that even in a life forged by hardship, light and joy can flourish like wildflowers between stones. You step through the low door of your cottage and feel the world inside embrace you like a soft sigh. The air here is warmer, heavy with the scent of peat smoke and the faint sweetness of dried lavender tied in bundles above the hearth. Light dances on the mud-plastered walls, creating shifting shapes that feel almost alive. You pause in the threshold, breathing deeply, and let the hush of home settle around your shoulders. In one corner, your little daughter sits on a threadbare stool, her small hands twisting a piece of yarn into knots. She looks up through tangled curls, her eyes wide with curiosity, and you offer her a soft smile. She knows your face as well as her own. You cross the room and kneel beside her, letting your skirt whisper across the floor. Your fingers find hers, guiding them as she loops the yarn again. Together, you create something simple, a knitted headband to keep the chill from her ears when the wind turns cold. Each stitch is a wordless conversation, a lesson passed from your hands to hers, a reminder that love can be conveyed in the quiet rhythm of making. Across the room, your partner sits on a stool by the fire, mending a frayed strap of leather with meticulous care. His hands are strong, calloused, marked with tiny scars from work and wood. He watches you move, your back straight, your hands gentle, and something like relief lifts in his eyes. He nods once, and you nod back, because here, words are few, but meaning is vast. You set aside the yarn and rise, bending to lift a kettle from its hook. You pour fresh water into a battered tin mug and hand it to him. The warmth seeps into his palms as he cradles it, and he follows you to the hearth where you cup the mug together, letting the steam rise between you like a fleeting veil. Your mother, stooped and slow with years, emerges from the back room carrying a bundle of washed flax. She moves with deliberate grace, her steps soft against the dirt floor. She places the flax on the table and tugs at its fibers, teasing them until they lie straight and shimmering in the firelight. You watch her fingers, brittle yet practiced, and you remember the first time she taught you this same task, how to draw the linen smooth, how to feel for imperfections, how to respect the fiber's history from plant to cloth. She glances up, and her face softens, not with sentiment, but with the deep satisfaction of passing on a skill that weaves family together. A knock at the door draws you all to stillness. In the silence, you hear your son's soft voice outside, timid but hopeful, offering to help with the chores. You exchange glances, his father and grandmother and you, and then your mother moves to open the door. The boy stands there, a wooden toy sword tucked under one arm, his eyes bright with pride. He steps in, brushing mud from his boots on the threshold, and without a word he joins the circle of work. You hand him a strip of flax to hold, his small hands grasping it awkwardly. He tries, and you guide him as gently as you guided your daughter, teaching him patience and purpose. The hearth's flames crackle, and the sounds of home weave together. Whispered instructions, the scrape of chair legs, the soft flick of wool against wood. You catch your partner's eye again, and in that shared glance you acknowledge the fragile balance that holds this household together. Love and labor, duty and tenderness, the fierce need to protect, and the gentle urge to nurture. Here, relationships are not declared in grand speeches, but in the steady accumulation of small acts, each meal prepared, each cloth mended, each child guided through the day. Outside, the wind picks up, rattling the eaves and sending a shiver through the walls. Your daughter cocks her head, listening to the low moan of the gale. You stand, smoothing your skirt, and move to the small window. Through its imperfect pane, you see the world beyond. The dark shapes of trees bending in the wind, the distant glow of smoke from neighbors' hearths, the sky tinted faintly pink with the promise of sunset. You close your eyes and breathe, feeling the boundary between home and wildness shift with every gust. Your partner rises and drapes a woolen stole around your shoulders, its weight a comforting tether. Your mother sets aside her flax and reaches into her apron pocket for a handful of dried apples. She passes them around, and each of you takes one. You bite into the leathery sweetness, and the flavor spills warmth through your chest. In the dim light, each face is serene, lined by years, softened by care. You taste the apple and taste home, taste continuity amid uncertainty. Your son leans against his father's knee, his breathing slowing as he chews. Your daughter's eyelids droop, heavy with contentment. You collect the yarn and flax scraps and tuck them into a basket by the hearth. You settle beside your mother, feeling the ache of shared history in your bones. This room holds centuries of voices, lullabies, prayers, arguments, laughter, fading in and out like echoes in a cave. You lay your hand over your daughter's, feeling the slow rise and fall of her pulse, and you let your heart expand with the simple miracle of familial bonds. In the glow of the hearth, time seems to ripple rather than pass. You are anchored in the present by the touch of skin on skin, by the murmur of conversations half remembered, by the scent of smoke and flax and apple. Here, love is not a roaring flame, but the embers that endure after the wood has burned. It is the quiet insistence that each member of this household matters, that each life is woven into the tapestry of home. When fatigue finally settles into your bones, you stand and guide your children to the low benches that serve as beds. You wrap them in the blankets you have stitched and spun, whispering soft blessings as you smooth their hair. Your mother hums an old lullaby, her voice cracking slightly, and your partner lights a small lamp made of tallow and wick, its glow soft and flickering. You watch the flame dance, feeling its warmth echo in your chest, and you allow yourself one deep breath, one moment of complete belonging. Then you step back and let the quiet take over. The room hushes. The only movement is the slow drift of smoke toward the rafters and the gentle rise and fall of sleeping breath. In this cradle of family, of home, of relationships forged in daily devotion, you understand the profound comfort of connection. And as you turn to leave, closing the door softly behind you, you carry with you the memory of this heart, its rhythms, its whispers, its steadfast warmth, into the unfolding day ahead. You step into the village church at dusk, and the air shifts. Beneath your skin, cooler, heavy with incense made from burnt pine resin and the faintest whisper of frankincense carried in tiny braziers along the stone walls. The floor underfoot is cold flagstone, worn smooth by uncounted feet, and each step echoes like a prayer. Flickering tallow candles set in iron sconces cast long, wavy shadows that dance across the frescoed arches. Their light is warm but hesitant, as if reluctant to disturb the hush. Above you, the vaulted ceiling rises into darkness, and you imagine unseen angels, carved in stone, leaning forward to overhear your every thought. At the front, the wooden altar is draped in a cloth of deep burgundy, trimmed with golden threads so faded they gleam only when the light strikes them just so. Behind it, a painted panel shows saints and martyrs in soft, haunting poses, their eyes turned heavenward, their hands lifted in benediction. A priest stands before the altar, his back to you, head bowed. His robes are richly dyed, the purple reserved for those of higher ecclesiastical rank, and embroidered with small crosses of silver thread. As he speaks, his voice is low, a rhythmic chant in the ancient tongue that slips through your ears and settles in your chest, resonating with something older than memory. You join the other villagers in a pew carved from oak, its surface polished by countless knees. You kneel on a cushion of straw and cloth, feeling the rough weave press into your knees, reminding you of the earth you kneel upon. Your hands fold together in your lap, thumbs crossed, and you bow your head, closing your eyes to trace each syllable of the litany in your mind. The prayers drift upward, part supplication, part confession, binding you to every soul here and to the countless pilgrims who came before. You sense the weight of faith around you, comforting for some, terrifying for others, but always profound. After the chant, the priest lifts a small loaf of altar bread, breaking it with solemn care. He offers it first to the churchwarden, then to the elders, then to the assembled villagers. When it reaches you, you take it between thumb and forefinger, light, dry, with a subtle taste of yeast and salt, and you place it on your tongue. It dissolves quickly, leaving behind a sense of unity, as though your body shares in something more than mere meal. Around you, others receive the bread with quiet reverence, their eyes closed, their breaths measured. In the silence that follows, you feel the pulse of shared belief, a living thread that weaves the community together. Outside the service, ritual continues in countless small ways. A woman at the well makes the sign of the cross before drawing water, murmuring a prayer for protection against illness and accident. A blacksmith pauses in his hammering to cross himself, the resounding clang of metal punctuated by that simple gesture. Children practice their catechism on doorsteps, reciting the Lord's Prayer with voices barely louder than a whisper, stumbling over words that nonetheless carry the weight of salvation. Seasonal rites mark the turning of the year. In spring, villagers gather to bless the fields, anointing the first furrows with holy water and strewing petals at the base of each newly planted row. In midsummer, they light bonfires atop nearby hills, dancing around them to ward off evil, spirits, and to celebrate the sun's power. As autumn brings the harvest, a solemn procession winds through the village, banners aloft, wheat sheaves bound with ribbons, prayers offered for bounty. And as winter's chill sets in, they kindle candles in every window on the eve of the Festival of Lights, a quiet vigil for warmth, hope, and the promise that the sun will return. You watch these rituals unfold not as an outsider, but as a participant, feeling their rhythms seep into your bones. You understand that religion here is not merely doctrine, it is the scaffold of daily life. It is the mortar between stones, the song beneath every labor, the compass by which every action is judged. To deny it would be to unravel the very fabric of the village, to sever yourself from the steady stream of belief that flows through every home, every field, every hearth. At the end of the service, the priest steps down from the altar and sprinkles holy water over the congregation. The droplets glint in the candlelight like tiny stars, and you feel them patter softly on your sleeve, a gentle benediction. You rise, shoulders lightened, heart nowhere near free of fear, but cradled in a fragile comfort. Outside, the evening sky is tinged with purple and gold, and you sense that for now, the world is held by faith as much as by earth and air. You tread back toward your home beneath the hush of bells, their distant toll a reminder that in this world, every breath, every prayer, every simple ritual is an act of survival and of hope. You step away from the church and into the open air, where belief lingers like dew on every blade of grass. Here, in the hush before noon, the villagers speak of signs that speak of fortune or doom, whispered at the well or muttered on the path to the fields. Superstitions drift through conversation like motes of dust in a sunbeam, impossible to grasp, yet impossible to ignore. A black cat crosses your path, its fur a smudge against the earth. You pause, heart light with unease, and tip your head away just enough so that your gaze falls on the furrowed ground instead of the animal's yellow eyes. A woman, watching from her doorway, whispers a warning to her child and spits into her apron, deftly avoiding the curse she fears the animal might carry. You understand. Here, crossing a black cat is not a chance encounter, but an invitation to beware, to steel yourself against whispers that swirl in the air like autumn leaves. On the walls of some cottages, you see sprigs of dried rowan wood hung. Above doors, their clusters of red berries shriveled and dark but still potent. They are charms against enchantment, tokens meant to ward off spells or ill intent. If you touch one by mistake, you must spit 3 times to disperse the lingering magic and avoid drawing attention to yourself. You feel the weight of the rowan wood even from afar, as though its presence is a silent promise that something unseen might be waiting just beyond the hearth. When the wind moans through the eaves at night, villagers say it carries voices of the lost. A gust that rattles shutters is not just cold air, but the breath of someone departed, calling for remembrance. You curl deeper under your blanket when the wind keens, listening for words that may never come, and you lay a small bowl of water by the door to catch any wandering spirits. Water, they say, snares the restless soul until morning, when prayer and sun together set it free. If you spill salt at the table, you push the pile over your left shoulder with your sinewy little finger. You do this without thought, motion, so practiced that you do not even feel the coarse grains slip from your skin. It is said that spilling salt invites a spirit to sit at your feast uninvited, hungry for more than bread or cheese. You send it blind into darkness behind you, hoping it will never return. In the fields, farmers watch the flight of birds for premonitions. A wagtail dancing near the furrows means a rainy night ahead. A raven circling low over the hedge portends a death in the village. You track the wings and tails, counting their patterns like an unspoken prayer. You do not speak of these observations aloud, never speak of death as if it were tomorrow's certainty, but in silence you brace for the future that the birds reveal. Comets that scorch the sky are especially feared. When one cuts a fiery arc above the church spire, sermons are given on sin and consequence, and families huddle before the hearth, praying for mercy. You remember the last time such a star fell overhead, how the fields withered and the well ran dry for 3 days. In the markets, rumors spread that the king would die or that plague would ride on the winds. You press a hand against the cooling flagstones, the memory of that hot streak still burning in your bones, and you vow to speak no more of it for fear that words might call it back. Certain trees are said to house spirits, old oaks near the riverbank most of all. You walk past one with a respectful distance, bowing your head slightly. Villagers will not cut its branches or carve its bark. Instead, they tie ribbons to its limbs in midwinter, asking the spirit to bless the coming year. The ribbons flutter in the breeze like colorful prayers, and each year the oak grows a little stronger. You imagine the spirit watching from its hollow trunk, patient and wary of any who might forget its power. On market days, you might hear someone whisper of a woman who was seen combing her hair by moonlight, her reflection gone. That is said to be a sign of an unsettled soul, one who has strayed too close to the realm of shadows. You feel the story brush your thoughts like a shadow on a wall, and you tug your coif tighter, making sure no stray locks catch the moon's reflection when you return home. Through all these beliefs, the world feels alive with hidden currents. Each superstition is a thread woven into the fabric of daily life, fragile yet enduring. They remind you that sight is limited and that safety often lies in the unseen. And as you move through the village, always watching, always wary, always respectful, you sense that the very air vibrates with potential meaning. In a place where every clatter in the attic could herald arrival or loss, superstition becomes both shield and burden. It is the language of shadows, teaching you that not everything can be held, but that everything can be felt. And in that elusive dance between fear and faith, you learn to tread lightly, trusting the unspoken signs that guide you through each trembling moment of the day. You settle beside the hearth as twilight drapes the village in muted blues and grays. The flicker of the flame draws your gaze to the worn faces of those who lean in, each carrying a story that blurs the line between history and dream. In this world, legends rise from the soil like mushrooms after rain, sudden and mysterious, both nourishing and dangerous. There is the tale of the green woman who once walked the wood beyond the creek. They say she wore a cloak of living vines and flowers that shifted with her moods. In spring, her blossoms were bright as dawn, and she guided lost travelers back to the path. But when harvest waned, her cloak withered to ash and thorns, and she led wanderers into the swamp where they disappeared beneath the reeds. Mothers hush their children with warning rhymes. Stay close to the banks, or the green woman's whispers will lure you into the cold waters. You listen to the crackle of firewood, imagining her eyes glowing among the brambles, waiting with patient hunger. Then there is the story of the Hollow Knight, a soldier said to have perished under the castle walls during the last rebellion. His armor, once bright steel, became black and pitted by grief. They say he wanders the battlements at midnight, sword drawn, forever dueling a phantom enemy. Villagers swear they have heard the clash of metal echoing from the distant ramparts, though no soldiers remain. Some claim that on moonless nights, they catch a glimpse of his helm drifting across the fields, a silent sentinel reminding them that wars do not end with peace, but linger in the land like stubborn ghosts. You press a hand to your heart, feeling its slow thud, as if the night's unseen blade grazes your ribs. In the deepest winter, when the wind howls through empty branches, you might hear of the Candleman. Legend says he was once a humble lamplighter, who kept lanterns burning along the long road to the next village. One bitter night, he stayed too long beneath the wind and ice, and his lamp's flame consumed him, body and soul. Now he walks the road as a pillar of living light, a figure of warmth to the lost but a warning to the foolhardy who would chase his glow. Travelers swear that if you follow the Candleman too closely, you will be drawn into darkness so complete that fear itself becomes solid. You imagine a column of fire drifting over the snow, its glow beckoning with soft promise until the path vanishes and only terror remains. Among the hearth tales, the most whispered is the legend of the Nightingale Queen. In a valley beyond the eastern hills, she is said to reign over birds of every kind. Her voice is more enchanting than any human song, and the forest blooms wherever her footsteps fall. Many have sought her to ask for blessings of song and spring, but only those pure of heart ever glimpse her pale face beneath her crown of feathers. One scribe claimed to have followed her melody for days, losing sense of time and hunger until he found himself back where he began, with no memory of the journey but a song forever echoing in his mind. You lean toward the hearth, wishing that such grace might reach even this humble village, carrying hope for seasons yet to come. In the darkest corners you hear hushed references to the bone weaver, a creature more whispered than named. It is said she collects the bones of the dead and weaves them into tapestries that foretell the fates of the living. The patterns shift like smoke, revealing births and deaths, wars and famines yet to unfold. No one dares speak of her in daylight, for to utter her name aloud invites her loom into your dreams. Yet some sneaking souls have left offerings of ribbon and thread at crossroads, hoping to sway their own fate toward mercy. You shiver at the thought of bone and thread, imagining brittle fingers pulling strands of human lives across some hidden loom in a place where shadows never end. These myths swirl through everyone's lips like incense, their details changing with each telling. No two accounts are the same, yet each holds a kernel of truth, a warning, a hope, a memory that cannot be forgotten. In the flicker of flamelight, you see how they bind the villagers together, offering a shared language to explain the unexplainable. They turn fear into story, and story into ritual, giving shape to dread and yearning alike. As the embers settle, you close your eyes and feel the weight of these legends in your bones. You hear the distant chant of cicadas like ghosts of the hollow night's battlefield, the rustle of leaves calling the green woman's name, the soft crackle of a candle wick igniting in the wind. And you understand that in a world where so much is uncertain, myths are the maps that guide the heart through darkness. You find yourself in the small apothecary tucked beside the churchyard, where the air carries 1,000 faint scents. Dried yarrow, crushed mint, powdered cinnamon, and something metallic that hints at blood or iron. The walls are lined with narrow wooden shelves, each holding clay jars sealed with wax and labeled in spidery ink. You move slowly along the rows, your fingertips brushing the smooth surfaces as if you might awaken their hidden contents. Here, healing is as much art as science, woven from stories passed down by midwives and herbalists, shaped by necessity, and by failures that left their own marks on memory. A woman stands behind the counter, her hands busy grinding roots with a mortar and pestle. The rhythmic crushing sends a fine green dust into the air, and you inhale deeply, tasting its bitterness on your tongue. She does not look up, but her voice slides over you like a gentle current as she names each ingredient. Ivy leaves for coughs, nettle for strength, willow bark for pain. She mixes them in measured portions, chanting an old rhyme under her breath, binding the plants together with water drawn from the holy well. You watch as she packs the paste into small leather pouches, each tied with a bit of twine and charged, with the promise of relief. In the corner, a low table holds glass vials of amber liquid, tinctures drawn from poppy, from foxglove, from the heart of valerian. A drop of each on the tongue brings dullness to fevered skin, quiet to a mind caught in restless loops. You imagine the power of these potions, the fine line between remedy and poison, and you feel a thrill of caution and respect. To cure one symptom might awaken another. To soothe one ache might silence the senses too deeply. A man enters, his face pale, his steps uncertain. He clutches his side as though it might fall away, and the herbalist sets aside her mortar at once. She presses a cool hand to his forehead, feeling the heat beneath her palm, then gestures for you to hold a lantern for better light. You obey, the flame trembling in your grasp, and you see the sheen of sweat on his brow, the tight line of his jaw, the way his breath comes shallow and fast. She pours a small draught of tincture into a wooden cup and presses it to his lips. He drinks, and you witness his shoulders sagging as relief seeps into him, like the easing of a knot tied too tight. In a corner, curtained by linen, you find bundles of dried herbs hanging by their stems, lavender, rosemary, mugwort, angelica. They hang like prayers offered to the rafters, their colors muted but distinct, each strand meant to ward off infection, to bring dreams, to chase away heaviness. You slip a sprig of lavender into your gown's pocket, tucking it close to your skin so its scent drifts against your heart. Later, when the night comes and sleep feels distant, you will breathe in its calm and remember the hush of this place. The herbalist speaks of bleeding as a cure for imbalance, of poultices to draw out pain, of poultices that might draw out too much if used unwisely. She recounts a tale of a child who barely survived a fever when a midwife boiled a brew of elderflower and mint and kept vigil for nights, feeding spoonful by spoonful until the child's eyes regained focus. She tells how a drawn poultice of comfrey leaves healed a broken bone in weeks instead of months, when applied with prayer and wrapped tightly in linen. But she also warns of miscarriages blamed on too much rue, of scars left by cauterization when a wound would not close, of poisons mistaken for tonic when weeds grew wild in the garden. You reach for a small knife on the counter and slice a piece of bark from a willow branch. The exposed wood gleams pale against your fingers, and you feel its latent power. Aspirin before aspirin existed, an extract of relief born from nature's own medicine. You scrape the bark into a bowl and mix it with water in a clay cup, stirring, until a fine sediment swirls at the bottom. You lift the cup and inhale the steam, feeling the faint warmth of promise. As you prepare to leave, the herbalist hands you a small vial of oil infused with marigold and rosemary. She instructs you to anoint your temples when your head aches, to massage your feet at night when your bones grow weary. You tuck the vial into your pocket, its weight a reminder that in this world, healing is never far from suffering. That comfort is a gift you must carry with you, carefully, as though it might slip away if not tended. Outside, the evening breeze stirs, carrying with it the faint scent of damp earth and distant hearths. You cradle the vial in your hand and feel the pulse of life's fragility beneath your skin. In this delicate balance between ailment and remedy, between pain and relief, you understand that healing here is a ritual, a slow, reverent passage marked by herbs and hands and hope. And as you make your way home through lantern-lit lanes, you carry with you not just the scent of lavender and rosemary, but the quiet knowledge that every wound can be tended, every fever soothed, and every suffering met with a careful touch born of time, trial, and unwavering care. You move through the village at dusk, where lamps of tallow gutter softly in windowsills and the hush of evening carries the weight of unfinished labors and unspoken goodbyes. Death here is neither distant nor forbidden. It is an ever-present shadow that follows every breath, a companion at the cradle and the bier alike. From the tiniest child lost to fever to the oldest elder slipping into dreams they never return from, every passing is marked with ritual, reverence, and the faint murmur of prayer. When someone dies, the body is washed by water drawn from the holy well and anointed with oils of rosemary and lavender. Family and neighbors gather to dress the departed in their best garments, linen gown, shroud, sometimes a threadbare cloak if the journey beyond is expected to be cold. Each fold of cloth is placed with gentle hands, as though sealing the soul, within soft embrace. A sprig of rosemary is laid in the hand, a symbol of remembrance, and the feet are pointed toward east, where the sun will rise again. As the last knot is tied, the quiet of the room deepens, and the air grows heavy with the scent of herbs and the echo of lives lived. In the days before burial, the body rests on a wooden bier in the family home. Lamps burn by its head and feet, casting long shadows that shift with every flutter of flame. Villagers come in silence to pay respects, leaving small tokens, coins, ribbon, dried flowers, at the foot of the bier. They cross themselves, pressing thumbs to lips before touching the offering, and murmur a blessing for safe passage. No loud wails or rending of clothes. Grief here is carried in the chest, where it swells and recedes like the tide, visible only in the tremor of a lip or the catch of a breath. Burial takes place at dawn, when mist clings to the ground and the world feels poised between night and day. A simple coffin of rough-hewn pine is carried on poles by kin and neighbors, each step a soft thud on dew-damp grass. The procession moves without haste, moving past the churchyard yew whose boughs hang like dark veils. The priest walks ahead, a slow chant rising in his throat, mingling with the caw of crows and the rustle of reeds. At the grave, the coffin is lowered into the earth by strong hands, and each mourner casts a handful of soil into the dark hollow, chalky brown, warm with morning sun. With every clump dropped, the finality of death settles deeper, and yet the act is also a benediction. a return of the body to the soil that gave it life. A modest marker of stone or wood is set at the head of the grave, carved with the name, the age, and sometimes a simple symbol: a lamb for innocence, a sheaf of wheat for plenty, a dove for peace. There are no grand monuments here, only humble signs that the soul beneath belonged to this place and once breathed its air. Over time, flowers may grow at the headstone, wild blossoms carried by wind or seed from the village garden, creating a living memorial that shifts with each season. Beyond the burial, belief in the afterlife shapes daily thought more than any sermon. Souls are thought to linger near their resting places in the first days, watchful and silent, before journeying to an eternal realm of light and fields. At the annual Day of All Souls, villagers light candles on every grave, setting them in clay bowls to guard against wind and rain. The glow of hundreds of flames casts the churchyard in amber warmth, and as prayers rise, the living feel alongside sorrow a strange comfort, as though the barrier between worlds has thinned and voices of the departed whisper back. Yet not all deaths are gentle. Those accused of witchcraft face another fate. Their bodies, if released by some mercy, are burned on rough scaffolds at the edge of town. Flames consume flesh and bone until only ash remains, scattered to wind and water. No beer, no candle, no tokens of grief, only the crackle of fire and the hush of a law enacted by fear. The stakes of accusation become brutally clear when even death cannot spare dignity. You leave the churchyard at daybreak, your footsteps muffled by grass heavy with dew. Each breath tastes of earth and memory, of lives ended and lives continuing. You sense in the chill air that death is neither enemy nor friend, but part of the same cycle that brings seed to sprout and day to dusk. To live fully here is to carry death close, to honor the fallen with ritual, and to face the unknown beyond the grave with both dread and hope. As you step away from the yew's dark boughs, you carry with you the knowledge that every life, no matter how ordinary, is woven into eternity, and that when your own last breath comes, you too will be laid in simple robes, your passing marked by gentle hands and somber song. Until then, you move through each dawn and dusk with the quiet assurance that death shapes life as much as life shapes death, binding all in a timeless embrace. You first notice him at the edge of the market square just after midday, when the sun rests heavy overhead and voices soften into a lazy hum. He moves like a reed in the wind, body slender and sinuous, his clothes a patchwork of mismatched scraps, bright enough to draw the eye, faded enough to speak of countless washes. There is a glint in his gaze that betrays mischief before he even smiles, and his grin feels like a secret shared just beyond hearing. You sense that he belongs nowhere and everywhere, a living anomaly in the ordered tapestry of the village. He greets each passerby with a tilt of his head, not quite a bow, but more than a nod, and his hands wave in small circles as if conducting an invisible orchestra. Children cluster around him, their feet muddy and bare, eyes wide as they watch him juggle bitter apples and twisted sticks. He catches each apple with a flourish, time and again, until one slips through his fingers and clatters against the cobbles, sending laughter rippling through the crowd. The child who retrieved the apple curtsies with exaggerated formality, and he returns the gesture with equal solemnity, trading a sly wink before vanishing in a swirl of laughter and dust. You follow him across the green, curious how a person so light on his feet can seem so substantial in the heart. He pauses at a well and dips a rag into the water, wringing it out in slow circles as though painting symbols on the stones. No one stops him, though you wonder if they fear invoking his unpredictable magic should they intervene. The damp cloth drips water in rhythmic patter, each drop a drumbeat that marks time to some hidden tune. You feel the pulse of possibility quicken in your veins, as though his presence has loosened the careful bindings of the day. He moves next to the butcher's stall, where the air hangs thick with the scent of blood and fat. With a theatrical flourish, he snatches a discarded bone from the ground and balances it on his chin, tilting his head back until the crowd gasps. He holds it there, bone perched like a crown, until the butcher, red-aproned and heavy-handed, steps forward with a scowl that could carve meat without a cleaver. Instead of anger, the butcher offers the fool a knife, cleaned, sharpened, dangerous, and the trickster plucks it from the butcher's hand and slices the bone into matchsticks with a single, precise motion. Those slender strips fall to the dirt like confetti, and you watch them scatter in the breeze as though carrying laughter across the village. You approach with cautious wonder, and he turns his head slowly, as though noticing you for the first time. His eyes shine with amusement, and there is no malice there, only curiosity. He taps you lightly on the shoulder with a feather he seems to produce from nowhere, and you feel its tickle against your skin. You catch your breath, aware of every hair on your arm standing to attention. The feather floats to the ground, and he steps back, arms spread wide, inviting your response. You reach out and touch the feather, its softness lingering under your fingers, and for a moment you taste the boundary between this world and a realm governed by whimsy and wonder. He leads you toward the churchyard wall, where gravestones stand, like silent sentinels. He pauses at a weathered stone carved with the name of a child long gone, places his hand on it, and closes his eyes. The air around you seems to sharpen, the distant toll of a bell, the whisper of wind through yew branches, the soft chorus of unseen voices. When he opens his eyes again, they are misted with something like sorrow. Without a word, he shakes his head, as if acknowledging grief he cannot change, and then he smiles once more, a gentle, rueful curl of his lips that feels both playful and profound. You stand beside him, sharing silent communion with the past and present. It is as though he has opened a door you did not realize was there, and you see the thin veil that separates life and memory, joy and sorrow, laughter and tears. He dips his hand into his ragged sleeve and draws out a small wooden whistle, carved in the shape of a nightingale. He presses it to his lips and breathes. The tone that emerges is haunting, a single note that stretches into the dusk, bending like light through water. The song does not belong to any known tune. It is something born of sorrow and hope intertwined. As the note fades, he turns to you and inclines his head. No words pass between you, yet you understand that he has shown you a secret, that this world, for all its rules and fears, still holds corners where magic lives, where mischief and mercy dance together in candlelit halls, where an outsider can slip into the spaces between hearts and remind them of wonder. Then he dissipates into the gathering shadows, leaving behind only the soft echo of his whistle. You stand alone for a moment, feeling the ground steady beneath your feet. The hush of evening settle around you, the lingering warmth of his presence in your bones. And you know, without knowing how you know, that the fool will appear again when the world grows too heavy, bringing laughter, carrying sorrow away on the tide, and reminding you always to see the spark of life flickering in every stone, every flame, every breath. You arrive at the courthouse just as the sun slides behind heavy clouds and the air grows cool with the promise of rain. The building stands at the heart of the village, its stone walls streaked with soot and age, its iron-bound, door solid and unwelcoming. Inside, the chamber is dim, lit by a handful of tallow candles whose flickering light throws the high wooden benches into shadow. At the raised bench presides the judge, his robes dark wool trimmed with a band of faded crimson that marks his station. His shoulders are broad, his posture impeccable, and though his face remains still beneath a powdered wig, you sense the weight of every life that has passed through his court pressing upon him like a cloak of iron. You slip into a seat at the back, the oak beneath you cool and unforgiving. Around you, villagers stand or kneel, their faces a mixture of hope and dread. The judge's eyes are dark pools behind half-lidded brows. They rest upon each petitioner in turn as though he can see truth shining beneath the surface of every word. When he speaks, his voice is measured and calm, each syllable released with deliberate precision, as if he were carving language from stone. He does not shout. He does not lean forward or pound his gavel. He lets silence fall instead, and in that hush the entire chamber draws breath together, waiting for his verdict. A woman stands before him, clutching a small bundle of herbs that trembles in her hands. She is accused of using those same herbs to curse her neighbor's livestock, and her eyes are wide with fear. Her voice quavers as she explains that the plants were for her own child's fever, not for harm, but the judge's gaze remains unwavering. He listens without expression, weighing her words against testimony and rumor. He tilts his head slightly when evidence falters and leans back when contradictions arise. You feel time stretching thin in the stillness, as though each heartbeat must carry the weight of justice. When he commands the clerk to read the verdict, his voice carries to the far corners of the room. The words land like stones, and you taste their gravity on your tongue. If the woman is found guilty, she will stand in the stocks at dawn and be branded on her cheek with a simple mark to warn others. If found innocent, she will leave unscathed, but the stain of accusation will linger in every gaze she meets. The clerk's voice echoes, and for a moment you see the judge's face soften, not with mercy, but with the solemn understanding of his own burden. He closes his eyes briefly, as though praying to a higher power before passing final judgment. As the woman is led away, you rise to watch her leave, her steps measured and hollow. The judge remains seated, unmoving, until the next petitioner approaches. You wonder at the steadiness required to preside over life and death, reputation and ruin, the glimmer of mercy and the echo of fear. Each decision he makes ripples outward, touching families and fortunes, forging futures or shattering them. You sense that behind the wig and robes beats a human heart, one that must endure each verdict like a wound, and then somehow heal in the hush that follows. Outside, the rain begins to fall in soft, insistent patter, splashing against cobblestones and washing dust from the air. You step into the gray light and feel the chill on your skin. In the distance, you see the stocks and the iron brazier that will burn at dawn, reminders that power here is not abstract but immediate, carried in a man's voice and a judge's gavel. You realize that in this world, authority is both shield and blade, capable of protecting the innocent and punishing the guilty with equal resolve. And you understand that even beneath the calmest exterior, the magistrate carries the burden of every whispered rumor, every broken promise, every life that passes through his court. You meet him at the edge of the village green as the sun leans low, turning the thatched roofs to burnished copper. He is bent and broad-shouldered, the lines of hardship etched deeply into his face. His hands are thick with calluses, and the earth they have tilled still clings beneath his nails. He greets you with a nod that feels like a promise. He will speak truth, no matter how small or grand, and you will listen. He settles onto a low bench, tucking his cloak beneath him. In his lap lies a battered leather sack containing a few simple belongings: a carved wooden bowl, a length of coarse rope, a scrap of cloth embroidered by his late wife. He lifts the cloth and runs a thumb over the faded stitches. A small ritual of remembrance that brings a faraway look to his eyes. Then he turns back to you, and his voice rumbles like distant thunder, calm but persistent. Water was low that year, he begins, and you lean in without realizing. He describes the spring that came too late, when the fields lay parched beneath brittle sun. How he and his sons dug channels by hand to guide every precious drop toward the wheat, coaxing life from the dust. How they rose before dawn, their muscles singing with ache, their sweat mixing with the dry soil until they barely knew where one ended and the other began. He recalls the taste of that first gulp of water, muddy and sweet, as though the earth itself offered a blessing. He speaks of neighbors who lost children to fever, of whispers that the church's well had been cursed, of nights spent pacing beneath orchard trees, gathering petals for teas brewed by the midwife, believing that roses could draw sickness from bone and blood. He tells of the skeptics among them, of lantern-lit arguments beneath open skies, fury flaring like lightning before, drifting into the hush of stars. He admits that he once spat upon a sprig of rowan gifted by a neighbor, convinced it worthless superstition, only to find his own flock stricken by miscarriage days later. In his voice there is no boast, no dramatic flourish, only the steady rhythm of lived experience. He recalls the joy when rains finally came, sweeping in like salvation, drenching the fields until every furrow became a river, how he and his sons danced atop the furrow banks, shouting in relief as seed and soil drank their fill, how the barley grew tall enough to brush the horses' bellies, how the wheat bowed heavy with grain, how the children chased each other through stalks as though lost in a cathedral of green. But the harvest, he says, voice softer now, is never just. The sun's gift. He reaches into the leather sack and draws out a single ear of grain, rough and golden. He rubs it between thumb and finger, scattering kernels into his palm. He places one kernel on the bench beside you. You feel its weight, small and resonant, as though it contains the memory of star and soil and rain and toil. He tells of the Lord's tithe, how half the harvest was claimed before the first loaf was baked, and of debts that lingered like ghosts, haunting the threshing floor and counting every grain twice. He looks up and meets your eyes. There is pride there, not in wealth or title, but in survival, in the knowledge that every season spent coaxing food from earth was a testament to hope. He speaks of sharing bread with wanderers at the crossroads, of passing the kernel you hold to his neighbor's child so she would never know hunger. He remembers the midwife's frail smile when she tasted his humble porridge, the blacksmith's nod of respect when he offered a stolen loaf to a stranger whose cart had broken. In his tale, you hear the pulse of the village itself, its fears and triumphs, its grudges and kindnesses. You feel the rawness of life laid bare, the ache of muscle, the sting of loss, the simple grace of first rain. And as his voice trails into silence, you realize that his story is not merely history, but lifeblood. Each act of labor, each gesture of compassion, each stubborn stand against drought or disease carries weight beyond measurement. He tucks the remaining kernels back into the sack and stands, his joints protesting but his spirit steady. He nods, once more as though giving permission to close this chapter of his life. Then he turns and walks down the path toward home, his silhouette framed by the glow of sunset. You sit for a moment, holding the kernel, feeling its solidity and promise, and you understand that in a world shaped by wind and water and toil, the peasant's tale is the heartbeat that sustains them all. You find him at dawn, standing before a wooden cart laden with bolts of cloth, earthenware jars, and bundles of herbs wrapped in linen. His stall sits at the crossroads where two dirt roads meet, one winding toward the fields, the other toward the distant market town. Already, he has stirred a small fire in a chipped clay brazier, its warm glow illuminating his wares as mist clings to their edges. You approach quietly, drawn by the soft clink of glass vials and the gentle rustle of fabric. He is dressed in a simple tunic of muted blue, the cuffs trimmed in embroidery that hints at faraway cities. A leather satchel hangs at his side, bulging, with coins and scraps of parchment. His hands, though steadily elegant, bear faint calluses, proof that he counts more than numbers in a day. He greets you with a nod that feels like a silent invitation to explore his world. You run your fingers along the folds of a crimson cloth, its weave tight and fine, imported from the looms of Flanders. He watches your touch, a faint smile playing. At his lips, and explains in a low voice that the dye is made from madder root, prized for color that won't fade under sun or time. You breathe in the scent of the linen, of dyes and distant harvests, and imagine the fields where madder was grown and harvested under a different sky. He lifts a small jar, its surface painted with simple white swirls, and tilts it until the lid comes free. Inside rests a dark powder, ground bark of the cinchona tree, carried along perilous seas from an empire across the ocean. He sprinkles a pinch into your palm. It tastes bitter, like distant thunder, and he murmurs that in far away lands it cures fevers that ravage bodies here as they rage in the tropics. You hold the powder close and sense the weight of oceans and uneasy alliances woven into its grains. Behind him, rows of leather pouches dangle like pendants, each filled with spices, pepper from the eastern ports, saffron threads plucked from autumn flowers, cinnamon curled like ancient scrolls. You inhale their mingled perfume, a heady promise of feasts you have never tasted. He shows you how to measure a pinch of each, demonstrating how the flavors combine, heat, sweetness, warmth, into a single breath of culinary enchantment. You close your eyes and taste sunlight in the memory of these spices, feeling warmth bloom in your chest. As the morning sun climbs higher, villagers arrive, the baker trading a loaf for a vial of saffron, the apothecary bartering a tincture for a length of fine ribbon, the priest accepting a handful of frankincense in exchange for a small pewter cross. The merchant greets each with soft courtesy, weighing goods with a brass scale, counting coins. On a wooden counter, his voice careful and deliberate. No hurry mars the transaction. Each exchange feels sacred, an affirmation of need and trust between hands that touch all too briefly. You watch him fold a scrap of parchment into a pouch, sealing it with wax and a pressed sigil. Inside are seeds of a rare flower, one that blooms only under a violet moon. He tells a young woman that to sow them on All Hallows' Eve brings dreams of love. To sow them at midsummer grants courage. She nods, eyes bright with anticipation, and hands him a coin so worn it glows at the edges. He tucks it away, and as he does, you see lines of fatigue around his eyes, the constant ledger of journeys made and deals struck weighing on him even as he smiles. When the sun stands high, he pauses to drink from a flask, a dark, cool draught of water infused with mint and lemon balm. He closes his eyes and inhales, letting the coolness steady his mind before the next wave of customers. You notice the faint tremor in his hands as he sets the flask aside, evidence that even the most practiced soul feels the strain of movement, transaction, responsibility. Late in the afternoon, he closes his ledgers and begins the ritual of packing. He rolls each bolt of cloth carefully, ties each pouch with twine, layers jars in straw to protect the fragile glass. You help him lift one crate onto the cart and feel the sturdiness of the wood, the slight give of the straw beneath. He offers you a grateful nod, then wraps a small scrap of cloth around your wrist, a token of appreciation, a talisman against travel-weary arms. Before leaving, he stamps his seal into warm wax on a folded note. Safe journey. It reads in spidery ink. You tuck the note into your own pouch, feeling its smooth surface against your skin, and you realize that in the merchant's world, every gesture is part of a larger tapestry. Roads that connect fields to towns, traders to healers, spices to feasts, stories to dreams. His day is more than profit and loss. It is the careful choreography of exchange that sustains this fragile village, linking it to the broader world beyond the horizon. As he turns the cart's wheel toward the road leading home, you watch the folds of his cloak catch the dying light, each movement measured, thoughtful, and unhurried. And you understand that the merchant's true gift is not only the goods he trades, but the connections he weaves. Each transaction a thread in the tapestry of life, each step a commitment to carry the village forward, one sunrise at a time. You Find him at the inn's worn doorstep as dusk settles into deep indigo. His cloak is travel-stained, the edges frayed from countless roads, and his boots bear the dust of distant lands. He carries a small satchel at his side, its leather cracked from sun and rain, and he pauses under the lantern's glow as though gathering courage. When he meets your gaze, his eyes hold the weight of unspoken miles and secrets too heavy for the road. He invites you inside with a slight bow, and the innkeeper offers him a mug of ale without question. The common room is hushed, the few patrons nodding in respectful silence as he settles at a corner table. The firelight flickers over his face, revealing lines carved by wind and worry, and you sense that his confession will not be easy. He sets the mug down and withdraws a folded parchment from his satchel, its edges singed and its ink blurred by travel. "I carry news," he begins, voice low and steady, "of tragedies and hopes that belong not to this village, but they have found me here, and so I bring them to you." He unfolds the parchment, smoothing it on the table as if revealing a map of fate. "Beyond the forest to the north," he says, "the Duke's castle stands breached. Rebellion burned its gates 2 nights past, and the blood of soldiers and innocents alike stains the frozen keeps." He pauses, letting the words settle like shadows in the hearthlight. "I saw the smoke curled like a serpent's spine, felt the tremor of walls collapsing beneath rage and hope alike." You lean closer, the rough grain of the table pressing against your palms. He continues, "I witnessed women and children fleeing with bundles strapped to their backs, terror in their eyes. Some bore marks, scars from whips or worse, brands of accusation that they were traitors or witches or spies for a foreign crown." He traces a trembling finger over the parchment, as though the words themselves are fire on his fingertip. "I tried to help. I offered water, bread, a word of comfort. They thanked me, then vanished into the pines, faces turned to memory too quickly." He folds the parchment slowly. "But that is not all." He draws a small wooden box from his cloak and opens it, revealing a brass ring engraved with a serpent devouring its tail, the symbol of a secret order tasked with preserving knowledge and fire from the flames of war. "I was to deliver this to a scholar in the city," he whispers. "He vanished the night the castle fell. I cannot find him, and without his guidance this ring's purpose may be lost forever. His confession hangs between you, heavy and intricate. You taste the smoke of distant siege, the fear of unmoored families, the dread of knowledge slipping into darkness." He lifts the ring from its bed of velvet and sets it before you. The serpent's scales catch the firelight, each curve and coil carved with uncanny precision. "They say it grants protection," he says, "but only if wielded by one who understands its language. Otherwise, it is just cold metal." The inn's fire crackles as though in response, and you feel the hush of fate pressing in. The traveler's shoulders slump, as though he has shared a burden too vast for one heart to carry. "I thought," he confesses, voice quivering, "that I could journey onward, through fields and towns, until I found the scholar or the order's citadel, but the roads are dark, and the night creatures more than mere beasts. I have seen eyes in the woods that burn like lanterns, guiding me deeper into madness." He sips the ale, finding strength in its familiarity. You offer him bread, and he accepts it with a grateful nod, tearing chunks and chewing slowly as though grounding himself in the present. "I need help," he says finally. "Help to carry this truth onward. Help to decide whether to seek vengeance or mercy, whether to hide this ring or to trust it to the hands of rebels and priests alike. I have become lost in my own story." You study his face, the weariness in his gaze, the tremor of his hands, the weight of his confession, and understand that in his tale lies a crossroads. Every village, every traveler, every whispered rumor can alter the course of wars and fates. In his need, you sense an opportunity to shape what comes next, to guide him toward hope or to brace for darker turns. He bows his head, placing the ring in your palm. Its metal is cool, a reminder of distant hearths and hidden fires. "I entrust this to you," he says, voice soft as prayer. "Carry it wisely, and carry my story with it. For if I disappear tomorrow, let my confession not vanish with me." You close your hand around the ring, feeling its solidity and mystery. Outside, the wind stirs the eaves, and the lantern sways gently. In that moment, you become part of his journey, guardian of truth, bearer of hope, witness to confession. And as the night deepens around the inn, you realize that the traveler's story, like every tale in this world, is both fragile and powerful, waiting for the next step to determine its fate. You hear the soft murmur before the tale begins, an almost secret chuckle carried on the hushed breath of the tavern's candlelit corner. The storyteller, a lean woman named Marjorie, perches on a low stool and adjusts her skirts with an air of conspiratorial delight. You lean in, the hush wrapping around you, curious how absurdity and fear can waltz together in a world so bound by suspicion. "'Twas in Essex," she begins, voice low and rhythmic, "where a certain widow named Agnes Waterhouse earned herself the rather embarrassing distinction of being the first woman condemned as a witch in all of England." You feel her words settle like soft stones in your chest, each one resonating with the weight of both tragedy and absurdity. Marjorie's eyes twinkle as she continues. "Agnes was hardly the most fearsome crone. She kept a familiar, a cat named Satan's Whisker to be precise, and it was said the creature could speak. On market day she brought the cat along to help haggle for poultry, which admittedly earned her odd looks, but instead of bartering by numbers and weight, she'd mutter incantations beneath her breath, and the cat would mew in a tone so human it made the butcher's eyebrows climb into his woolen cap. You imagine the scene, a sleek black cat perched on a wooden crate, haggling over hens as villagers gape and whisper. A chill of both humor and dread shivers through you. "Now," Marjorie says, pausing to sip from her pewter mug. The day came when the constable himself decided to test her powers. He brought a goose, fattened for the feast, and challenged the cat to steal it. Agnes laughed, mumbled a quick charm, and, sure enough, Satan's Whisker slipped into the shadows and returned with the goose by its tail. The constable's jaw dropped so hard I nearly thought it would shatter." She leans forward, the candlelight flickering across her grin. Of course, returning with poultry in its jaws was hardly subtle. The constable insisted it must be devilry, and so Agnes went from market sorceress to convicted witch in the space of a single goose. You let that settle. An entire life upended over a grocery errand gone too well. But wait, Marjorie adds, the absurdity did not end there. At her trial, Agnes was asked if she had confessed to sorcery, and, in her confusion, perhaps still, worried about the constable's broken goose, she replied that yes, the cat did speak, but only when it wanted food. She assured them it was mere trickery, not pacts with the devil. The magistrates, bewildered and scandalized, demanded she show the cat in court. She sent them off in pursuit of Satan's Whisker, who had vanished into a neighbor's chicken coop. By the time they returned, flustered and empty-handed, the magistrates had already pronounced her guilty based on rumor, gossip, and the missing poultry. Marjorie lowers her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. Agnes was executed on March 1566, and the poor cat was hanged shortly after to free its soul, they said. She shakes her head, and you sense a collective exhale from the room, as though everyone has just witnessed the final absurd act of a tragicomic play. In that moment, Marjorie reflects softly, the world tilted on its axis, balancing between fear and farce. Here was a woman and her cat, entangled in everyday life, swept up in accusations so fragile they broke at the slightest touch. The cat's crime was convenience. Agnes's crime was trusting it too much. And the magistrates, well, they showed just how easily authority can mistake showmanship for sin. You sit back, feeling the story's echo linger in your bones. The gasping of the room, the clink of mugs set back on tables, the soft broom of wind against the window pane, all fall into place as the final notes of this strange tale. The absurdity has not dulled the tragedy. If anything, it shines a light on how easily fear can twist the ordinary into the extraordinary. Marjorie's gaze meets yours, and for a moment you share the understanding that history's oddities are not mere curiosities, but warnings, that the line between laughter and horror can be as thin as a cat's whisker. She nods, as though granting permission to rise, and slips back into the shadows, leaving you alone with the hush. In that silence you carry with you the image of Agnes and her clever cat, partners in everyday magic, accused and executed for a trick gone too far. And you sense that in remembering their story, you honor both the absurdity of human fear and the resilience of those who dared to defy it, even for the price of a single goose. You wake with the hush of dawn curling around your ears like a soft shroud, your eyes open to the pale gray light that filters through the oiled linen window, painting every surface in muted tones of ash and silver. You lie still for a heartbeat, feeling the cool straw beneath you, its texture rough yet familiar, reminding you of nights spent in simpler beds. Your breath is slow, deliberate, carrying with it the faint scent of peat smoke and damp earth. You rise, limbs heavy with the promise of a new day, and let your bare feet find the cold, packed earth floor. Each step is careful, measured, as though the ground might shift beneath you if you move too quickly. You draw the threadbare blanket around your shoulders and move toward the hearth. The embers of last night's fire cling to life, glowing faintly, like distant stars. You kneel before them and breathe gently onto the coals, coaxing warmth back into the stones. A single stick of kindling responds, flaring to life with a sigh that echoes in the stillness. You add another, then another, until the hearth glows wide enough to chase the cold from the corners of the room. The rising warmth lifts a weight from your chest, and you close your eyes for a moment, feeling heat spread through your bones. Outside, you hear the first sounds of the village stirring. A low murmur drifts through the unlatched door. The scrape of cartwheels on mud, the distant lowing of cattle being led to pasture, the soft calls of mothers rousing children from their slumber. You stand and cross the room, lifting a clay jug from its resting place. You tilt it toward your lips, letting the cool, flat water slide in like river water drawn from the well. It tastes of clay and mineral, grounding you in the moment between night and day. You slip on your cloak, wool heavy on your shoulders, its edges still damp from the morning dew. The fabric brushes your skin with every movement, a constant reminder of the world outside these walls, a world shaped by wind and rain and toil. You step to the door and pause, letting the hinges squeak softly as you push it open. The air greets you, cool and keen, carrying the scent of grass and wood smoke and something that might be hope. You step onto the path, each footfall leaving a soft imprint in the damp earth. The sky is an expanse of gray-white, unbroken by sun or star, but you sense light growing, making its way through clouds like gentle hands brushing the sky. You draw a slow breath, tasting the raw promise of the morning. A robin flutters from a branch overhead, its song low and clear, a solitary note in the hush. You listen, letting the melody fill the space between your thoughts and your dreams. You walk toward the stable, where the horses shift and nicker at the sound of your approach. You reach a hand through the gate and feel the warmth of their flanks, beneath your palm, soft and muscled. With practiced ease, you lift a bucket of water from the trough and set it before them, letting the cool liquid flow against their tongues. Their breath clouds in the air, and you watch the ripples it makes in the crisp morning light. Beyond the stable, the fields lie quiet. Rows of barley stand bowed with dew, each head heavy and trembling. You reach out, brushing your fingers through the stalks. They whisper against your skin, carrying the secrets of seasons past and seasons to come. You pause, closing your eyes, and let the hush of the fields fold around you, the soft rustle of grain like a lullaby. As you turn back toward home, you carry with you the echo of that song, the warmth of the hearth, and the taste of cold water on your lips. You know that the day ahead will be filled with labor and challenge, but for this moment, this fragile cusp between sleep and waking, you are simply alive, breathing in the hush of morning and letting it cradle you before the world stirs fully. Awake. You step beyond the threshold of your cottage and feel the moisture of dawn cling to your cloak as you make your way down the winding path toward the fields. The air is alive with hushed movement, hens scratching at damp soil for their early grain, a dog's soft pant as it pads beside its master, carts creaking as they are led from lean-tos to the main road. Every sound is gentle yet insistent, a reminder that the day demands both attention and respect. You arrive at the communal barn where your neighbors have already begun their tasks. The heavy barn doors creak open, revealing a dim interior strewn with straw and shafts of weak morning light. You shoulder your way past a stack of hay bales and exchange a brief nod with the man tending the grain sacks. Together, you lift a coarse burlap sack filled with oats and carry it to the feeding trough, the weight catching in your arms and grounding you in the simple necessity of care. The horses stir as the oats spill into the trough, their low wickers a quiet chorus of gratitude. Outside, you join the row of villagers bent over the first tasks of the day. Some guide oxen through the freshly furrowed soil, turning earth that will soon hold the promise of sustenance. Others repair hedges, weaving new brushwood between broken stakes, their hands moving in practiced cadence as they stitch the boundaries of their world back together. You kneel to mend a section of fence, a length of broken rail that threatened to let the goats stray into young shoots. Your fingers find the grain of the wood, smoothing jagged edges before securing the rail with twine. Each twist of the cord is precise, deliberate, a quiet act of preservation. A distant clatter draws your attention to the weaver's shed, where the loom stands ready for the day's work. You pause to run your hand along the warp threads, feeling the tension beneath your fingertips, imagining the fabric that will emerge, a cloak to ward off winter winds or a simple sack to carry the harvest. The weaver glances up and offers you a small smile, then returns to her rhythm, her shuttle dancing back and forth with the light tap of wood against thread. You move on to the mill, where the wheel turns slowly in its stone channel. The miller nods as you arrive, wiping the sweat from his brow with the back of his sleeve. He hands you a wooden paddle and gestures toward the channel's flow. Together, you adjust the sluice gate, letting more water pour against the wheel's paddles until it spins with renewed vigor. The grinding stone hums to life, and you feel the resonance through your arms as the millstone begins its slow descent, crushing grain into flour. You stay long enough to measure the consistency, releasing a handful of freshly ground flour and letting it sift through your fingers, fine and soft, ready to become bread. By mid-morning, the sun has climbed above the low haze, and you make your way to the blacksmith's forge. The bellows rest against the wall, and you pump them once to feed air to the hearth's smoldering coals. The blacksmith raises his hammer and brings it down on glowing iron, sparks dancing like fleeting fireflies. You hand him tongs to hold the metal steady, feeling its heat surge through the grips. Each hammer strike shapes the iron into tools that will serve the fields, the home, the life of the village. The work is loud in its intensity, yet there is a softness in the rhythm, a harmony between forge and form. As the forge's heat recedes from your skin and the fields call you back once more, you pause to catch your breath. The air is thick with the scent of iron, earth, and sweat. You taste the morning on your tongue, a blend of grit and promise. You allow yourself a small moment of stillness, feeling the pulse of labor shared, of tasks woven together in service to a collective need. Then you rise, shoulders squared and heart steady, and step toward the next task waiting in the hush of the morning. There is order here, but also freedom in the rhythm of hands at work and minds attuned to earth and fire, and you understand that every act, no matter how simple, is an echo of resilience that carries you and your neighbors through the long turning of seasons. By the hour of midday, the sun has climbed to its zenith, casting a warm glow across fields and rooftops alike. You step away from the labors of morning, your cloak slung over one shoulder, and make your way toward the communal long table set, beneath the great oak at the village's edge. The table is rough-hewn planks laid across trestles, each bench carved by calloused hands. The meal about to begin is modest but rich in meaning, a moment where labor pauses and community gathers in shared respite. A woman ladles thick pottage, barley simmered with turnip, onion, a pinch of salt, and bits of salted pork, into wooden bowls. Steam rises in gentle swirls, carrying the earthy scent of vegetables and smoke. You accept a bowl and press your palms against its sides, warming your fingers before drawing the spoon to your lips. Each mouthful is hearty, the chewy barley and soft vegetables melding into a warm comfort that seeps into your core, reminding you why the day's work is worth every ache. Beside you, a man breaks fresh flatbread, its crust rough but its interior soft and yielding. He passes it around the table, tearing off pieces and letting you dip them into the pottage's golden broth. The bread bears the faint tang of sourdough, and you taste the whisper of yeast that lifts your spirits as surely as the meal lifts your strength. A child's laughter ripples through the crowd as she offers you a piece, her eyes bright with the simple joy of generosity freely given. At one end of the table, a basket of dried apples and pears sits beside a jar of honey. You reach for a slice of dried pear, its flesh still pliant and sweet, and dip it lightly into the honey. The flavors mingle on your tongue, sun-drenched fruit and the slow warmth of beeswax and blossom. It is a taste of abundance carried from orchard and hive, a reminder that even in lean times, sweetness can be found. Conversation drifts softly around the oak's broad trunk. Neighbors speak of the noon bell's toll, of weather promised by shifting clouds, of news from the distant town where taxes have risen. But voices are calm, measured, as though each word is weighed against the hush of midday sun. You join in, briefly sharing news of a wayward goat returned to its pen, of a scrap of cloth traded for dye, of a neighbor's newborn colt. Each small detail is a thread in the tapestry of village life. Above you, the oak's leaves whisper in the light breeze, sending dappled shadows across the table. You close your eyes for a moment, feeling the interplay of sun and shade on your face, the murmur of conversation and wind as a lullaby. You breathe in the blend of aromas, herb smoke from a nearby hearth, the sharp tang of fresh wood smoke, the faint perfume of wildflowers growing at the tree's roots. When the bowls are emptied, hands rise to push them aside and the table falls into a gentle hush. A woman stands to carry the bowls to the washing trough, water poured from the well at dawn. You rise too, offering your help, and feel the smooth wood of the table beneath your fingertips as you pass bowls along the line. The water hisses softly as it meets remnants of pottage, and you scrub each bowl clean, readying them for the next meal. As the midday meal concludes, you pause at the foot of the oak, letting the tree's strength flow through you. Your belly is full, your thirst sated, and your spirit lightened by fellowship. The work of the afternoon lies ahead, chores to resume, fields to tend, crafts to shape. But for this moment, you feel the unity that sustains the village as surely as bread and pottage sustain the body. You lift your gaze to the sunlit leaves and let the hush of midday settle into your bones. Then, with renewed strength and purpose, you step away from the long table, ready to walk once more into the unfolding day. You return to the fields as the sun dips slightly toward the west, its warmth gentle now, no longer sharp enough to drive sweat from your brow. The rhythmic cadence of labor continues around you. Villagers stooped over the rows, guiding the last weeding of the season, a group of children gathering flax blossoms at the hedge, their laughter soft as wind chimes, the distant song of a shepherd, tending his flock beyond the wheat. You draw a deep breath, feeling the afternoon air settle into your lungs like an old refrain, steady and sustaining. You kneel in the furrowed earth and begin to gather weeds by their roots, each pull releasing a quiet sigh of soil and root. Your fingers feel the grainy texture of earth, the resilient grip of stubborn plants, the pulse of life beneath the surface. You work without haste, your movements deliberate and unhurried, aware that each weed removed is a safeguard for the growing grain, a small act of devotion to the cycle of growth. Every handful you lift becomes lighter in your hands, not only because the weeds are smaller, but because your heart feels relieved to be doing this simple, grounding work. Once the weeding is done, you move toward the hedgerow that separates the barley from the pastures. There, an old man sits carving a wooden figurine of a stag, his knife strokes slow and precise. You pause to watch each curl of wood fall away, revealing antlers and sinew beneath the bark. He glances up and offers you a small nod, as if to invite you into his solitary craftsmanship. You take a piece of scrap wood and begin your own carving. Gentle cuts that transform something rough into something intimate. With each careful slice, you feel the sharp blade passing beneath your skin, a reminder that creation often lives alongside danger. After a time, you lay your figurine aside and rise, stretching your back against the warmth of the sun. The wind has shifted to carry the scent of hay drying in the meadows and the faint perfume of wild thyme growing between stones. You walk toward the village green, where a few elders sit in the shade of a linden tree, their eyes closed against the sun, their canes resting at their sides. You join them, settling onto a low bench, and feel the hollow of respite settle into your bones. Their breaths are slow, their exhalations soft, and in the hush you realize that leisure here is not idleness, but a deliberate pause, a chance to gather strength before dusk. One of the elders opens her eyes and offers you a bit of honeycomb wrapped in cloth. You take it carefully, pressing the sticky sweetness to your tongue. The honey dissolves like liquid sunlight, carrying with it the hum of flowers and the distant buzz of bees. You close your eyes and taste the meadow's bloom, feeling the day's work melt from your shoulders. Around you, the tree's leaves whisper in reply, and you sense the linden's watchful presence, its roots entwined with the village's history. As the breeze picks up, you rise and stroll toward the stream that bisects the village, its water clear and cold. You sit on a moss-covered stone at the water's edge and let your toes dip into the current. Tiny fishes dart between your feet, startling you with their quicksilver gleam. You lean forward and cup the water in your hands, watching it slip through your fingers in 1,000 glinting droplets. The cool touch against your skin is balm to the heat of the afternoon, and you feel connected to the flow of time itself. Each drop, a moment passing, each ripple an echo of life unfolding. Before you leave, you gather a handful of smooth pebbles and toss them gently into the center of the stream. Each stone plunks below the surface and sends concentric rings outward, marking the water's surface with fleeting circles. You watch them expand and vanish, a silent testament to the impermanence of every action and every hour. You rise once more, brushing the back of your hand across your forehead, and you carry with you the hush of this moment as you head back toward home. As the sky shifts toward amber, you sense that the afternoon's labor and leisurely pause have woven together with quiet harmony. The fields have been tended, the crafts begun, the spirit renewed. You step back onto the path leading to your cottage, the lengthening shadows falling softly across your path, and you know that the day draws nearer to its end. Yet, in this gentle interlude, you have found balance, a meeting of duty and delight that sustains you through each turn of sun and shadow. You stand at the threshold of your cottage as the sun slides low, painting the sky in brushed strokes of amber and rose. The air grows cooler with each passing breath, and the day's warmth lingers only in the stones beneath your feet. You close the door softly behind you and lean against its frame, letting the hush settle around your shoulders like a familiar cloak. The fields beyond shimmer in the dying light, their golden heads bowed as though in silent prayer, and the distant sound of a church bell tolling the hour echoes across the valley. Inside, the hearth's embers glow faintly in the fire pit, charred, gray stones cradling the memory of flame. You gather a handful of kindling and lay it atop the ashes, then coax the sparks back to life with gentle breaths. The wood sighs as it ignites, flickering into a steady flame that warms the room and chases back shadow. You arrange a few larger logs and watch the fire paint the walls with dancing light, feeling the hush of evening deepen with every flicker. You move to the table and set out a simple supper, a hunk of cheese, a small loaf of barley bread, and a cup of weak ale spiced with mead and honey. The bread is dense and dry, but its crust bears the taste of grain and hearth. You tear off a piece and let its warmth fill your palms before taking a careful bite. The cheese melts against your tongue, its tang sharp and honest, and the ale slides down your throat with a soft sweetness. Each taste is deliberate, slow, a final communion with the day's labors. Outside, the windows glow with candlelight as neighbors light their own hearths. You see the silhouette of a shepherd guiding his flock toward the barn, the faint bleating of sheep carried on the breeze. A dog barks once, a lonely call that fades into the hush. You rise and cross the room to the window, pressing your hand against the cool glass. You watch as the first stars dazzle in the twilight sky, distant beacons that will keep watch until dawn. You return to your seat and rest your elbows on the table, fingertips laced together. The fire crackles softly, releasing spirals of smoke that drift toward the low ceiling. You feel its warmth in your chest, a steady comfort that mirrors the steady beat of your heart. You close your eyes, breathing in the mingled scents of wood smoke, straw, and the faint sweetness of spent ale, and you let the hush of evening cradle you. A soft knock at the door draws you back to wakefulness. You rise and open it to find your partner standing in the gloom, cloak drawn close against the night air. In one hand, they hold a small lantern, its glow gentle enough not to pierce the darkness. In the other, a jug of fresh water warmed by the day's sun. They offer it to you with a nod of quiet affection, and you accept it with a soft smile. You pour a little into a wooden cup and lift it to your lips, feeling the pure coolness wash away the last traces of dust and work. Together, you move to the low benches that serve as beds. Your partner tucks you in beneath the woolen blankets you have stitched, smoothing each fold as though creating a cradle of warmth. The jug is set aside, its purpose fulfilled, and the lantern is placed on a small shelf, its glow reduced to a single dancing ember. You lie back, your shoulders heavy with contentment and exhaustion, and you feel the pull of sleep in every muscle. Above you, the rafters hold the last whispers of flame, and the shadows on the walls shimmer like waking dreams. You tune into the distant murmur of the night, the rustle of leaves against the thatch, the soft breathing of your partner by your side, the gentle snore of your children in their straw beds. You close your eyes, letting each breath draw you deeper into the hush. Outside, the wind settles and the world softens. The fire dims. The stars wheel in silent procession. The village exhales as one, sliding into the embrace of night. You feel your mind drift, untethered from worry, carried on the slow current of dusk. In this tender hour, you understand that the day's end is not a farewell but an invitation, a promise that when you wake, the world will begin again, steady and alive. And as your eyelids close, you breathe one final sigh of gratitude to the dying light, to the hush of night, to the gentle cycle that carries you, always, to morning. You linger in the hush of that 17th century dawn and then shift back into the present moment, where your mattress yields beneath you in a way straw never could. In your room, modern. Comforts wrap around you. The gentle hum of a heater, the softness of memory foam, the steady glow of an electric lamp. Contrast that with the cold bite of dawn in a cottage, where every bone in your body felt the chill until the hearth roared back to life, and even then the warmth held its grip in patches, never quite all at once. In this world you navigate now. Water pours instantly from taps, clear and warm, while then you carried each bucket from a distant well, its weight pressing into your palms, its chill a reminder that every drop mattered. Today you twist a knob. There you wound a rope, lowered a bucket, coaxed the liquid upward with patient muscle and prayer. A faucet's hiss is whisper quiet. The well's return was a slow song you felt in your arms. Your clothes in the present are soft and tailored, designed to fit and flatter, spun from fibers you never see. In their time, garments were passed down through generations, patched and restitched until the sleeves carried the shape of every shoulder that had worn them. Today, you press a button to adjust light and temperature. They lit candles whose dancing, flames cast both beauty and danger, whose flicker required vigilance as well as solace. Meals now arrive with a click, a swipe, a sound bite of delight. Then you tasted warmth only after hours of coaxing embers, stirring grains and roots until they released their flavor. Your porridge now slides down your throat with practiced ease. Theirs whispered of survival, each chew measured against the ache of muscle and the hope of tomorrow. Every morsel carried weight beyond hunger. It carried the blessing of earth and labor braided together. You drift through news carried on screens, updated by the second, while they listened for church bells to mark time, for roosters to call, the hour for the creak of a cartwheel or the low bellow of cattle to signal the next task. Their world was paced by rhythm of nature and community, yours by algorithms and schedules you barely notice. And still, in both worlds, there is the same need for warmth, for water, for sustenance, for ritual. Today, you might crave the hush of candlelight or the slow ceremony of brewing tea. Then you craved a spark of fire and a sip of water. In the soft comparison between now and then, you see how progress has offered ease, yet longing remains, for connection to earth, for simplicity, for a moment held in stillness, where every breath and every heartbeat matters. In the centuries, since that world of wattle and daub, humanity has gathered a wealth of gifts. Medicines that ease fevers once deadly, machines that carry our burdens and connect distant voices, lights that banish darkness at a flick. Every breath of air we draw carries the invisible legacy of progress. Vaccines that once existed only in whispered hope, engines that hum beneath city streets, networks of knowledge we carry in our pockets. We wake to warmth at dawn without thought. We move through day without hauling water or dreading the weight of every step. We sleep surrounded by comforts unimaginable to those who lived by hearth and hammer. And yet, amid these gains, we have surrendered something subtle and profound. The slow hours of dawn have given way to schedules that chase the sun. The hush of evening has been drowned by screens that demand attention. Our hands no longer know the resistance of soil or the grain of wood. We measure time in seconds and notifications, while they measured time in seasons and the rhythm of nature's pulse. Their stories were woven into the turning of fields, into the carving of wood, into the ritual of firelight. Ours are woven into data points, to-do lists, the ever-threatening ping of demands we cannot quite silence. In their world, every act held ritual significance. each meal a testament to labor and land, each chore a link in a chain of communal survival. Today, convenience can strip ritual from daily life. We shop with clicks and calls, we eat in passing, we skip the ceremony of making and sharing and simply move on to the next task. In doing so, we lose touch with the ancient thread that connects sweat to sustenance, body to earth, community to the shared effort of being alive, and still, we would not relinquish our gains. The blessings of medicine saved children from fevers that once carried them to fragile graves. The engines that hum beneath our cities bring warmth and light to millions. The networks in our pockets carry stories and songs and knowledge farther, and faster than any traveling minstrel could dream. We hold in our hands the power to heal wounds and to speak across oceans. Perhaps the true challenge is not to choose between past and present, but to weave them together, to carry forward progress without abandoning ritual, to let our hands remember the resistance of earth even as they swipe a screen, to light candles in quiet evenings, to share meals made with care, to pause in our schedules for moments of stillness. In this balance lies the promise of a life both eased and enriched, one that honors the sweat of ancestors while embracing the wonders of our age. Now you return to your own bed, its soft layers welcoming you like a friend you have longed to meet. The stories of straw and firelight, of ancient seasons and whispered rituals, settle into the quiet corners of your mind. You carry with you the echo of hearth smoke, the hush of barley fields, the gentle solidarity of a village bound by shared labor and small joys. Rest here a moment, breathing in the ease of modern comfort. Feel the steady rise and fall of your chest, the gentle rhythm of a world that cares for you in ways once unimaginable. And yet let your heart remember the thrill of coaxing embers into flame, the weight of water in your hands, the taste of pottage, savored beneath an oak's broad arms. Imagine, for a heartbeat, the soft glow of candlelight at dusk, the hush of neighbors gathering at a long table, the ancient trust that binds human souls across centuries. You may never kneel by a well or weave a basket of reeds, but the spirit of those simple acts, of offering water, of sharing bread, of tending fire, lives in you still. So carry this tenderness into your own world. Light a candle tonight and watch its flame tremble. Pause before sipping tea or pouring water and taste the connection to every hand that drew and held and shared. Let the rhythm of seasons guide you. Watch the sky's shifting hues. Notice the cadence of rain and wind. Honor the cycle of rest and renewal. You have walked a day in another time. You have seen how every breath can be ritual, every step can be prayer, every gesture can be a gift. Now, as you drift toward sleep, allow these echoes to lull you deeper, weaving through your dreams like gentle threads of smoke. And if you awaken tomorrow with a sense of quiet wonder, know that you carry two worlds within you, the one that hums with modern ease and the one that breathed with earthy rhythms long ago. In the space between them, you find both comfort and curiosity, warmth and wisdom. Rest now, cradled in both. The fire dims, the wind rests. Your breath is the steady drum of life, and sleep, like a soft benediction, finds you here and now in warmth and in peace.